Chapter 1937. Gong Jie asked curiously. He was extremely surprised. How could his sister be so capable as to raise such a heaven-defying genius like Yu Yu? Compared to Yu, Xiao Yichen was born in the same womb as Yu Yu and was also 8 months pregnant. Why was Xiao Yichen not as smart as Yu Yu? When he asked about Yu Yu said, "Mommy didn't teach me how to raise me. She has always let me do whatever I want and allowed me to develop freely." Gong Jie obviously didn't believe him. How could he develop freely to this extent? To be honest, he had always wanted to bring Yu Yu back to the Gong family. His father had always had high hopes for this child and had high hopes for him. He had always wondered what kind of child could come up with the Deva project and promote the research. If the research was successful, the Hurricane Group's future territory would be immeasurable. However, he still hadn't revealed Yu Yu's identity to his father. Yun Shishir smiled helplessly. "I didn't really raise him. Yu Yu has been in poor health since he was young. I spent all my effort on his health." Poor health? Gong Jie raised his eyebrows. Yu Yu's health was indeed not satisfactory. He was very thin and was different from Xiao Yichen's sunny and energetic aura. Other than the mature and steady aura he gave off, there was also a strange feeling. His health seemed to be very poor. Once he exercised vigorously, his heart rate would be irregular and his breathing would be frighteningly rapid. He had never seen Yu Yu's illness, but he had always seen him pale and weak. Yun Shishir said quietly, "Yes." Because he was born prematurely and Xiao Yichen had taken all the nutrients from his mother's body, he didn't cry or make a fuss when he was born. His little face was purple and he didn't even breathe. When Xiao Yichen was born, he cried very loudly. Although he was also a premature baby, he was very healthy. However, Yu Yu underwent surgery right after she was born. After that, she was kept in an incubator for a long time before she passed the critical stage. He was almost gone. The nurses all said that if it weren't for the little guy's strong will to live, he wouldn't have made it. As Yun Shishir spoke, she paused and looked at him. "Isn't it amazing? Such a young child actually had a strong will to live. Therefore, I feel that Yu Yu and I are fated to be together. He is the best gift that God has given me." Although she looked calm when she said this, when Yu Yu was in the critical stage and she had just given birth, she still held on to her body and painstakingly stayed by Yu Yu's side. At that time, she was filled with despair and uneasiness. She prayed all the time that this child would be safe and sound. Every minute, every second, was torture. This was because no one knew what fate this child would face in the next second. Would it be death? Would it be survival? Even the doctors couldn't say for sure. They only said that this child had a strong will to live, but his vitality was very weak. They could only try their best. Whether the child could survive or not depended on the child's luck. Yun Shishir was frightened when she heard this. She was afraid that the child wouldn't survive. When she was still in school, she actually didn't like children. When she saw how mischievous other children were, she silently thought that if she had children of her own in the future, she would definitely train them to be obedient and cute. Chapter 1938. Motherhood could turn a fierce and aggressive woman into a gentle and soft woman. She was amazed by the wonders of God and the impermanence of the world. She was certain that once the 2 children were born, they would be separated from her. Even so, she still hoped that the 2 children would grow up healthily. Xiao Yichen was taken away by the Mu family when he was born. However, they left behind a sickly child. The Mu family did not know. The first time Yun Shishir saw the child, he was in an incubator. His skin was wrinkled and his face was flushed. He did not even have time to open his eyes. However, his long eyelashes fluttered like the wings of a butterfly. They were long and charming. "I hope that you will survive. I hope that you will grow up to be taller than me and be healthy." Yun Shishir made a wish and named him Tianyu. She hoped that the heavens would protect the child and that he would be able to survive the ordeal. The child seemed to be very intelligent. It was as if he understood her prayers. His vital signs became more stable day by day. On the 18th day of his birth, he finally survived the ordeal. However, he spent his long childhood in the hospital. Yun Shishir always felt that she owed him. Hence, unlike other parents, She did not impose too many burdens on the child and allowed him to develop freely. Gong Jie quietly added after her, "He developed freely, but in the end, he developed into such a heaven-defying person. This little guy is young, but he is very smart. He has a sweet mouth and knows how to coax people." Yun Shirshir was amused. I don't know who he learned that from. He will definitely be a lady killer when he grows up. Not only that. Now that I think about it, he will definitely be a lady killer when he grows up. He will be able to attract women from as young as 7 years old to as old as 70 years old. Yun Shirshir began to imagine that when Yu grew up, there would be many girls lining up to pursue him. She could not help but feel amused. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, 7 years had passed. Perhaps, in the blink of an eye, Yu would really grow up. Yun Shirshir thought that when that day came and Yu brought his wife home, she would definitely be jealous. "Sister, where are we going to play?" "Safari Park." "Look at animals?" Gong Jie raised his eyebrows in anticipation. "I've never been to a zoo since I was young. How could this be?" Gong Jie said indifferently, "Because I had a lot of tasks when I was young, my father gave me a lot of plans, so I didn't have the time to play." "The zoo is very interesting. We'll go on a road trip and drive around the park." "All right." Gong Jie agreed happily. As long as he could be with her, he would like to go anywhere. When they arrived at the gate of the zoo, they were charged for stopping a taxi. Yun Shirshir had already booked the tickets online. Now that the internet was developed, everything was very convenient. One only needed to scan the QR code to obtain a pass. The safari park had a special road trip. What was different from other zoos was that here, one could have close contact with some gentle animals. In the zoo, other than the area for ferocious animals, visitors could park their cars at any time and interact with the animals. It was very interesting. This zoo was very popular. Although it was not a weekend, it still attracted many visitors and the queue was very long. Chapter 1939. Before this, she had specially prepared a lot of carrots and vegetables in advance, intending to feed them to the small animals. After successfully entering the park, Yun Shirshir's car was quickly stopped by a cute alpaca. These animals in the wildlife park were all very smart. When they saw the car, they would casually walk forward and stop the car to ask for food. Some would even stick their heads into the car window and lick it with their tongues. They would use a pair of curious and bright eyes to stare at them like spiritual spirits. "What's this?" Gong Jie's eyes widened in surprise. He looked very interested in the alpaca that was blocking the car and chewing nonstop. "Alpaca?" "Yes, it has a nickname. It's called Grass Mud Horse." "Is it asking us for food?" Gong Jie asked curiously. His handsome eyes were slightly smiling as he looked at the alpaca. A pair of lazy eyes stared at the car. Then, with lazy and decadent steps, it slowly walked to the car window. After posing, it calmly stuck its head out of the car window and opened its mouth wide. Gong Jie was amused. "So bad, stopping the car to ask for food. How scheming. It's very clever." Yun Shirshir laughed again. "Give it a carrot. It likes carrots." Gong Jie had just taken out a carrot from the food container. Before he could feed it, the alpaca's eyes lit up and it nimbly took the carrot from his hand. Its rude and unreasonable actions were undoubtedly snatching food. Gong Jie was stunned. He felt like he was being charged a toll. Yun Shirshir didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She looked at the alpaca that had destroyed a carrot. Then, it looked at the food container in Gong Jie's hand and licked his face with its long tongue. Gong Jie snatched it away in disgust and hugged Yun Shirshir's shoulder. "Sister, save me. Don't tell me you're afraid of an alpaca." "I dislike it. Its mouth stinks." The Gong Jie was a bit of a clean freak. After being licked by the alpaca, he was disgusted. Yun Shirshir said enviously, "Shao Jie, you don't cherish it." This alpaca was very cold. Most people wanted to get close to it, but it ignored them. "It licks you because it likes you." "Of course not." Gong Jie complained. "It's obviously trying to steal my carrot. That's why it's trying to be nice to me. It's so scheming." Yun Shirshir laughed out loud. "Then quickly give it the carrot. If you give it to him, he won't bother you anymore." Gong Jie took out a carrot to tease it. He deliberately tempted it, and when it was about to eat it, he moved away. However, the alpaca was very persistent. It didn't know how to be angry. It stared at the carrot in Gong Jie's hand for a long time, but it couldn't lick it. After a while, the alpaca realized that the two-legged beast must be teasing it. It pouted its mouth angrily and spat at him. Xianxia was speechless. Gong Jie was also speechless. He closed his eyes, frowned, and fell silent. The saliva on his face was sticky. His face was stiff, as if it was the first time an animal had despised him and spat at him. Was it despising him? Xianxia complained, "Serves you right. Who asked you to tease it?" Gong Jie expressed his innocence. He thought it was cute, so he couldn't help but want to tease it. In the end, the alpaca despised him. The alpaca seemed to have vented its anger and spat at Gong Jie again. Chapter 1940. A stream of saliva splattered on Xianxia's face. Xianxia was still laughing at him when she was spat on too. She was so aggrieved that she was about to cry. Gong Jie laughed gloatingly. "Ha! You were spat on too. Serves you right. Who asked you to laugh at me?" Xianxia immediately took a wet towel and wiped the saliva off her face. She glared at him. "You still have the cheek to laugh? It's all your fault for implicating me. He was obviously spitting on you. You're my sister. We should share blessings and hardships together." Gong Jie winked mischievously and also wiped his face with a wet towel. The siblings looked at each other and smiled knowingly. After giving the carrot to the alpaca, Xianxia and Gong Jie went to the sink and washed the saliva off their faces. Luckily, she didn't wear any makeup. Otherwise, without makeup remover, it would be difficult to remove the saliva on her face. After Gong Jie washed his face, he looked at Xianxia, who was carefully wiping her face. He suddenly reached out and held her hand tightly. Xianxia turned around and looked at Gong Jie, only to see his eyes full of tenderness. "It's so good to be able to hold my sister's hand." Gong Jie's smiling eyes were bright and full of doting. "You caused me to be spat on and now you're trying to please me? It's too late. Sister, I was wrong. Don't be angry, okay?" Gong Jie pretended to be obedient and tried to please her. Xianxia snorted and turned to leave. Gong Jie stuck behind her, feeling wronged. Just like when they were young, when he made a mistake, he would follow behind her and constantly use flowery words to make her happy. Xianxia continued to walk forward by herself as she pursed her lips and snickered incessantly. After Gong Jie repeatedly begged for mercy, she turned to glare at him coquettishly and suddenly held his hand. "All right, I forgive you. But from now on, be good, okay? Okay. Listen to me." Gong Jie smiled and looked at her obediently. Even though he was 1.89 meters tall, Xianxia's petite and slender body only reached his chest, making her look like a little bird that was dependent on him. However, such a big guy listened to her and even obediently lowered his head to kiss her on the cheek. "I love Big Sis the most. Hey, there are so many people watching. Isn't it embarrassing? Can you be more serious? What? People will only be envious of our good relationship," Gong Jie said as he held her hand tightly. Along the way, he gently held her hand as they quietly toured the garden. Walking on the small path, countless people turned their heads to look at the handsome man and beautiful woman. The man had a slender figure, a handsome face, and a tall and straight posture. The woman's figure was graceful, elegant, and refined, quiet and warm. Perhaps it was because Xianxia was wearing a mask and her face couldn't be seen clearly, but when they saw her and Gong Jie standing together, many people mistakenly thought that they were a couple. There were even many young couples looking at them. Especially those young ladies, their gazes landed on Gong Jie and they couldn't look away. They had never seen such a handsome and sunny man, especially when Gong Jie lowered his head to listen seriously to Xianxia's words. His eyes were focused, serious, and full of love, making many girls envious. They also wanted to have such a considerate and gentle boyfriend. The most important thing was that he was so handsome. Yet, such a perfect man was actually taken. Chapter 1941. Xianxia was baffled and felt many hostile gazes on her. She looked around and realized that many people were looking at them curiously. She seemed to have accidentally become the public enemy of the girls. However, it was indeed a little too ostentatious to have someone as dazzling as Xianxia by her side. Let's go back to the car? What's wrong? Gong Jie did not notice the admiring gazes behind him and raised his eyebrows curiously. Tired? Yeah, a little. Let's go to the beast area. Thus, the two of them hurriedly got into the car and left this troublesome place. Xianxia actually enjoyed spending time with Gong Jie. He was the family member she cared about the most and one of the few people in the world who doted on her the most. He was different from Wuxia. Wuxia doted on her, but he was very possessive of her. However, Xianxia was different. He listened to everything she said, just like when they were young. He would do whatever she said and follow her wishes. She cherished Xianxia as a family member. Similarly, she knew that Xianxia cherished her as much as his own life. She had seen everything he had done in silence. The day was very short and ended very quickly. When she sent him back to the hotel, Gong Jie was silent and seemed a little lonely. His vacation was very short. It was just 2 days and he had to resume his hectic schedule soon. He only had 1 day of companionship, but he felt unsatisfied. Sister, it would be great if we could hang out together more often like today. Sure. As long as you're not busy. Will brother-in-law be jealous? Xianxia smiled proudly. Will he be jealous of his own brother-in-law? That's true. When they arrived at the hotel, Gong Jie got out of the car and turned to look at her reluctantly. Sister, I still hope that you can consider going back to the Gong family with me. I haven't mentioned your matter to father, but he has been keeping an eye on my whereabouts. I'm afraid I can't hide it for long. Soon, father will know about you. Xianxia hesitated for a moment, then said slowly, How did he know your whereabouts? Because I'm surrounded by his spies. Gong Jie paused for a moment, but in his heart, he silently cursed. To be honest, he wasn't sure if his father knew about her movements. Even though he avoided it and took the initiative to hide it, there was no news from the Gong family. However, her father's influence was extensive, and he would soon grasp her sister's whereabouts. Sooner or later, she would be exposed. Therefore, he wanted to bring her back to the Gong family. Xianxia asked hesitantly, Will he accept me? Of course. You are his daughter. Father has always missed you. Really? Accept me and the Mu family? Gong Jie suddenly fell silent. Suddenly, he slowly said, Father hates the Mu family more than I do. Even after so many years, it was still difficult for him to let go. I'm afraid it will be difficult. If there comes a day when he can accept everything about me, be it my husband, Yu or Xiaoyichen, if he can accept it, then I will be willing to go back to the Gong family with you. However, before that, I don't want to acknowledge him. Xianxia said truthfully. Gong Jie took a deep breath and suddenly smiled. Okay, I won't force you, but I still hope that you will consider it. Okay. Chapter 1942. Go back to the Gong family? That place that was related to her by blood. What kind of place was the Gong family? Were the people in the family easy to get along with? Would they be hostile towards her? She guessed from Gong Jie that her mother was not the only woman in the Gong Xiaoying family. Gong Jie said that there were many members in the family and many candidates for the successor. Firstly, she could imagine that the Gong family was a big family. Secondly, she guessed that the Gong Xiaoying family must have many women and, like the Mu family, many children. She was just one of them who had wandered outside. He did not seem to know that she was still alive, but he had always cared about her. After all, Mu Qingqing was probably the woman he loved the most in his life. She was also the woman he felt the most guilty towards. He had many regrets. It was as if he could only fill this regret by finding her. Then, should she go back to the Gong family? Xianxia had never considered this question. The Gong family had always given her the feeling that they were mysterious and domineering. However, it did not give her a sense of warmth. It made her feel that that place did not feel like a home. She did not want to go back. Subconsciously, she did not want to go back to that cold place. To her, the Gong family did not mean anything. It was just two emotionless words. It was not that she was heartless. But since she was young, the concept of her biological father had been very weak. When she got home, Yu and Xianxia were looking at the gown that had been delivered to them. The people from the studio had just delivered the gown. Yu and Xianxia opened the door. Seeing that Xianxia had returned, the assistant smiled and greeted her respectfully. "Madam Yun, you are back. We've already ironed the gown. Would you like to try it on? If there are any imperfections or flaws in the details, we'll fix them. The film festival is the day after tomorrow." Xianxia glanced at them, only to see a look of exhaustion on the faces of the assistants. This gown was specially custom-made. She originally wanted to go to the counter and buy a set of finished products. She didn't need to wait and could wear it immediately. Many of the dresses at the counter were finished products from the fashion show. However, Xianxia didn't agree. It was very easy to wear the same clothes as the finished products of the show. There were so many star-studded celebrities at the film festival, and it was easy for them to wear the same outfit. Although it was not scary to wear the same outfit, it was embarrassing to see who was the ugliest. However, if they wore the same outfit, it was inevitable that the public would compare them and judge them. What Xianxia was more worried about was that now that she was so popular, if she were to wear the same outfit as a small fry, they would definitely be tied together by the other party's team. Wasn't this the same as being raped? Xianxia would never allow such a thing to happen. Therefore, he asked many experienced designers to design a few sets of gowns as soon as possible. After taking Xianxia to choose, he took measurements. It had only been a few days since the dress selection, and the dress had already been rushed out. This gown was exquisitely made. It looked simple and elegant, but in reality, the embellishment of the details took a lot of effort. Xianxia was quite surprised that such an exquisite dress could be made in just 5 days. It was also obvious that the people in the studio attached great importance to this matter. It was obvious that they had worked overnight to complete it. Originally, they had called Xianxia and asked him to go to the studio with Xianxia to try on the gown. Chapter 1943. A few assistants helped her change into the gown. After changing, Xianxia stood in front of the full-length mirror and looked at herself in satisfaction. She had to admit that Xianxia had a unique taste. She had thought that he would custom-make a gorgeous gown for her, but in fact, he had custom-made a simple and beautiful gown for her. The Green Apple had been nominated for many awards at the film festival. Therefore, she had to match the atmosphere of the movie when she walked the red carpet. In the movie, she had created a pure and elegant image. Therefore, when she walked the red carpet, if she were to put on too much makeup, it would make the movie fans feel unfamiliar with her. She had to match the theme of the movie and promote it further. Most of the fans at the film festival were attracted to her performance in The Green Apple. Therefore, Xianxia had custom-made a pure and elegant gown for her. This way, the fans would feel immersed, as if the character in the movie had walked out of the screen alive. The snow-white gown was embellished with delicate blue lace. It was refined and elegant, and it was beautiful beyond compare. Coupled with the crystal-like nude makeup, it looked pure and elegant. It was very beautiful. Xianxia was also very satisfied. She walked out in the gown and stood in front of Yu and Xianxia. "What do you think of this gown?" Xianxia immediately exclaimed in surprise, "Mommy is so beautiful." This was the so-called clothes rack. Xianxia had a delicate frame, a well-proportioned body, and a rare golden ratio. Her legs were very long, so even though she was wearing slippers, she still looked very elegant. Xianxia felt that his mommy looked good no matter what she wore. Not only was his mommy beautiful, but she also had a very elegant aura. Beauty could be improved later, but elegance was very difficult to improve. Some female celebrities were very beautiful, but they were so delicate that they looked like soulless porcelain dolls. They were very empty and lacked charm. Therefore, temperament was sometimes even more charming than beauty. Yu crossed his arms and looked at her with a deep gaze. He quietly sized her up and suddenly smiled gently. "Mommy looks very good in this gown. Why did you take so long to answer?" Xianxia pouted. "Are you saying something against your will to make mommy happy?" "What? You look good no matter what you wear. How can I lie to you?" You still deny it? What do you mean by, I look good in anything? You can't lie to mommy. Xiao Yichen snickered. There's a saying that goes, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. You taught me. Yun Shirshir blushed. What lover? Yu said that mommy must have been his lover in his past life. That's why they were fated to meet in this life. Before Xiao Yichen could finish his sentence, Yu covered his mouth and glared at him. What nonsense are you spouting? Little Yichen looked at him innocently. Blinking his eyes, he seemed to be silently accusing him. You're the one who told me that. He wasn't spouting nonsense. Yu had told him before that a daughter was her father's lover in his past life. Therefore, it should be the same for a mother and a son. Therefore, beauty was in the eye of the beholder. In Yu's eyes, his mommy was perfect. No one could compare to her in this world. However, Yu hated Xiao Yichen for failing to live up to his expectations. He gritted his teeth. How could he say something like that in front of mommy? Chapter 1944. It was a pure thought, but when he said it, it made him seem like he had an Oedipus complex. Yun Shirshir looked at the two little guys and suddenly burst into laughter. Yu, don't bully your older brother. Yu looked at her innocently, feeling helpless. Finally, she let go of his hand helplessly. However, her cold gaze seemed to be warning Xiao Yichen not to say anything else. Xiao Yichen made an okay sign. Yun Shirshir changed out of the gown, and the assistants came forward to ask about it. Yun Shirshir was very satisfied with the gown and said, It's already perfect. Thank you for your hard work. You must have put in a lot of effort to rush this gown, right? The assistants looked at each other and heaved a sigh of relief. Madam Yun, it's good that you're satisfied. However, it's only right that we put in a lot of effort. Customers come first. Our goal is to make sure that you're satisfied. After sending off the people from the studio, Yu pestered Yun Shirshir and asked, Mommy, are you going to walk the red carpet with Daddy at the film festival the day after tomorrow? How did you know? Daddy told me. Yu pursed his lips and smiled, but he looked a little lonely. I also want to walk the red carpet with Mommy. Xiao Yichen lowered his little head in loneliness. I'm so envious of Daddy. He can walk the red carpet with beautiful Mommy. I'm so envious. Daddy deliberately told us. Isn't it obvious that he's showing off? Yu hugged his chest indignantly and felt very indignant. He's really grown up. Even a blockhead like Daddy is following the trend and showing off his love. Sigh. Yun Shirshir looked at them in a daze and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. These two little guys looked like they were putting on a show. She squatted down in front of them and pondered for a moment. Suddenly she smiled and said, One day, I'll let you walk the red carpet with Mommy, okay? Yu and Xiao Yichen looked up in surprise when they heard this. They looked at her in disbelief and said in unison, Really? Xiao Yichen was especially excited. Can we really walk the red carpet with Mommy? Yes, of course. When Mommy becomes the best actress, I'll walk the red carpet with you. Xiao Yichen was elated and he clapped his hands. That's great. Mommy, I love you. However, Mommy Yu uses Mommy and Mommy, don't make us wait too long. You Mommy my, Mommy Mommy, Mommy 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 A's Mommies she's Mommy love ma Mommy Mommy's her. Mommy 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 Mommy, you, Mommy, Mommy 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 Momo, yay, why? Xiao Yichen smiled. You have a high chance of winning an award. However, this year's competition seems to be very strong. Mommy must work hard and win an award. Thank you for your kind words. Yun Shirshir was in a good mood. She planted a kiss on his forehead. Yu immediately said proudly, Me too. I want Mommy's kiss too. Silly boy. Yun Shirshir looked at him lovingly. Then, she leaned over and kissed Yu's tender cheeks. Yu's face smelled like milk. It was as if he had been soaked in milk. She patted his little head and swore to herself that if she had the chance, she would walk the red carpet with the two of them. This was her real dream. That night, Qinzhou asked her if the gown fit her. Chapter 1945. She had just debuted and was attending the film festival as a newcomer. Qinzhou emphasized that she should not be too aggressive and walk the red carpet quietly with Muyaja. All that was left was to wait for the awards to be announced. The film festival was a star-studded event with many big shots and A-list actors and actresses, as well as veteran actors and actresses. Some celebrities were easy to deal with and were generous. Some celebrities had weird tempers and were sensitive. They were hostile and guarded against newcomers. She needed to pay attention to this. She had to take the initiative to greet the seniors and accept any suggestions from them. She had to deal with those who were not friendly to her calmly. After all, she had just debuted and was inexperienced. It was normal for her to be ostracized. It was difficult for newcomers to survive in any field. All of them had been newbies before. Their wives had gone through hardships to become their wives, and they were experienced. Naturally, they had to be a little more arrogant and like to put on airs. They had to cater to them and avoid unnecessary disputes. Actually, Qin Zhou was worried that Yun Shirshir would be ostracized at the film festival. After all, she was a newcomer but had a strong momentum. She had a box office of billions. Moreover, The Green Apple had broken the box office record. Therefore, many people were hostile to her and speculated about her. However, he heard that Yun Shirshir and Chairman Mu were walking the red carpet together and that their seats were arranged to be next to each other. With Chairman Mu around, she should not be in too much trouble. After a while, Qin Zhou sent over the draft of the media interview. Some of the key questions were listed and the answers were written. He asked her to memorize them and improvise. Yun Shirshir was impressed by his thoughtfulness. She could not help but ask, "Are there any interviews on the day of the film festival?" "It's not an interview. It's a routine interview with all the main cast of The Green Apple. It's all very simple questions. You just have to memorize them. I've already contacted the media. There won't be any tricky questions. As long as they're not tricky questions. Don't worry. We've already communicated with the media beforehand. The questions on the press release in your hand will be the questions that the media will ask on that day. Memorize them and answer accordingly." Qin Zhou paid special attention to this matter. "You must memorize them properly." "Okay." After ending the call with Qin Zhou, she browsed Weibo for a while. As expected, her personal Weibo was once again flooded with a series of shares and reposts, as well as hundreds of thousands of likes. So, this was what it meant to be famous. She felt that after becoming famous, there wasn't much of a change for her. As a public figure, he had indeed sacrificed a lot in his private life. Other than that, there wasn't much difference. Perhaps it was because her mentality was better, she adjusted very quickly. As usual, she clicked into Gu Xing's Weibo. The most recent post was the half-length photo of him in the bathroom. That was the condition he promised his fans after the box office hit 2 billion. After this Weibo post, there were no other updates. He had really disappeared without a trace. Other than the fact that there was no exposure or announcement, Mu Yaja's ban on him was even more comprehensive. All the advertisements that he endorsed had been removed from the TV station. However, due to the contract, some of the print advertisements of the big brands would still appear in the department stores. Chapter 1946. Including this film festival. Gu Xingze was supposed to be an important guest, but it was confirmed that he would not be attending this time. The absence of the male lead in The Green Apple would definitely cause a lot of discussion and speculation. Yun Shirshir turned off her phone and leaned against the chair. Sometimes, the entertainment industry was really a cruel place. She had just debuted not long ago, but she already had a deep understanding of it. Forget it. Don't think so much. When Mu Yaja returned, Yun Shirshir had already gone to bed early. Her phone had slipped to the side, but it was still lit up. He picked it up and glanced at it. She was still memorizing her script before going to bed. The man smiled helplessly. He tucked her in and caressed her cheek gently. Yun Shirshir was a light sleeper. His touch woke her up quickly. She opened her sleepy eyes and was surprised to see him. "You're back." She rubbed her eyes and complained, "What time is it? Why are you back so late?" "I had something to do at the company, so I delayed it." "Have you had dinner?" Yun Shirshir asked with concern. His stomach was not very good, so she always paid attention to whether he ate 3 meals on time. Mu Yaja smiled. He sat on the side of the bed and smoothed her messy hair. You can't even take care of yourself, but you still have the time to worry about me? How could I? I'm clearly taking good care of myself. Xianxia got up slowly and hugged his waist. She hugged him quietly. She looked down and greedily pressed her face against his straight back. She suddenly felt a great sense of security. She liked to hug him quietly like this. This sense of security was as if she would not be afraid even if the sky fell down with him around. It's so good to have you. Every night when they hugged each other to sleep, she slept exceptionally well. She did not have any dreams and could always sleep until dawn. This feeling was very reassuring. Wuxia let her hug him quietly. After a busy day, he really enjoyed this peaceful time with her. All right, go to sleep. I'm going to wash up. Xianxia remained silent. She continued to hug him and refused to let go. Wuxia did not know what to do with her and remained motionless. You're not sleepy? I'm sleepy. Xianxia was lazy and unwilling to move. She placed all her weight on him. Her dependence on him was evident at this moment. If you're tired, then go to bed early. Xianxia replied with an obviously reluctant to let go. I want to hug you more. Wuxia could not help but laugh. He gently scratched the bridge of her nose. Little fool. He liked that she was so dependent on him. Moreover, he enjoyed this warm feeling. How great would it be if time could stop at this moment? Idiot, get some rest. It's cold at night. If you catch a cold, you won't be able to walk the red carpet the day after tomorrow. Wuxia coaxed her to lie down. Xianxia nodded gently and lay on the bed like an obedient cat. He covered her with the blanket and kissed her forehead before going to wash up. When he returned to the room after a hot shower, the little fellow on the bed had already fallen asleep. The bedside lamp was still gently lit, reflecting on her beautiful face. Time was peaceful. Wuxia got into bed and hugged her in his arms. He also went to bed early. Song Family. Chapter 1947. She had not left her room for 3 days and 3 nights. Similarly, she was not done yet. Song Yunxi felt depressed. She did not know what was wrong with this little ancestor. She locked herself in her room in a fit of anger and refused to come out. She was throwing a tantrum again. He had just returned from the army when he mentioned this matter to his mother. He did not even need to think about it to know who had wronged her outside again. Song Yunxi asked, "Has she not stepped out of this door in the past 3 days?" But she did open the door. When? The servant was trembling in fear at the side. Last night, when she knocked on the door, Xianxia opened it. However, as soon as she opened the door, her face turned horribly ugly. Just as she asked a question, Xianxia expressionlessly knocked over the food tray in her hand. She fell to the ground. The scalding hot soup splashed onto her hand and scalded a large portion of her skin. After applying the medicine and bandaging the wound, the servant felt unspeakable bitterness in her heart. In the entire Song family, Xianxia was undoubtedly the most difficult to serve. Her temper was the most arrogant and willful. She did everything based on her character. She often bullied the servants at home and gave them attitude. The servant looked at Song Yunxi and asked carefully, "Young master, how is it? Young miss hasn't eaten for 3 days and 3 nights. If this goes on, young miss's body will collapse." "Do I need you to remind me?" Song Yunxi sneered in annoyance. He raised his hand and knocked gently on the door. Then he said gently, "Enya, it's me. Can you open the door?" There was no movement from the door. Song Yunxi frowned suspiciously and knocked on the door for a long time. After calling out nicely for a long time, there was no movement or response. He asked suspiciously, "Are you sure Miss hasn't left the house? She's really inside." "Miss hasn't come out. We've been guarding, but she hasn't taken half a step out of the house." Song Yunxi was even more suspicious. Her expression changed. Just as she was feeling suspicious, she heard footsteps coming from the door. His face lit up, and the next second, the door was opened from the inside. However, when Xianxia appeared at the door, Song Yunxi was stunned. In just 3 days, Xianxia's entire state had changed. She hadn't eaten anything for 3 days, and her face was especially dispirited and ugly. She hadn't removed her makeup, but it was obvious that she had cried for a long time. Her eyes were red and swollen, and her face was also very swollen. However, because she had not rested well, her complexion was especially ugly. It was as if she was covered in a layer of dead ash, without any signs of life. "Enya, oh, big brother, you're back?" Song Enya stared at him blankly. Like a broken puppet, she was expressionless. Especially those eyes, there was no luster at all, they were dim and lifeless. "Enya, what happened to you?" Song Yunshi had never seen her in such a sorry state. "I'm fine." Her tone was flat and emotionless. He had thought that she would vent her anger on the servants like before, beating and scolding them to vent her anger, or perhaps she would rush into his arms and cry loudly. Alas, none of that happened. She only looked at him with an extremely terrifying and empty gaze, but it was as if she could see through his body and look elsewhere. Chapter 1948. Bring it in. Song Enya cut her off coldly and stepped aside to make way for her. Her calmness made Song Yunshi feel even more strange. He was even more worried. He would rather his sister cry and throw a tantrum and complain to him unreasonably than see his sister acting as if she had lost her mind. The servant did not think too much about it. As if she had been granted amnesty, she hurriedly lowered her head and respectfully brought the tray in. After the servant came out, Song Enya wanted to close the door. Song Yunshi quickly stopped her. "Wait!" Song Enya's actions were sluggish for a moment. She turned her head and looked at him blankly. Her eyes were still empty and lifeless, making one's heart tremble. She was clearly still alive, but she gave off a feeling that she was already dead. "What's wrong with you?" Song Yunshi questioned sternly. "Look at yourself. How did you end up like this? Don't you think it's appropriate?" Song Enya only said calmly, "It's none of your business." These words were too cold. Song Yunshi was a little angry from embarrassment and reprimanded sternly, "Get it straight. What do you mean by, none of my business? I'm your brother. You're my most beloved sister. How can I not care about you?" When Song Enya heard this, there was finally some expression on her face, but it was a hint of cold mockery. "You make it sound so nice. Then tell me, how do you want to control me?" These words undoubtedly stunned Song Yunshi and made her speechless. He did not know how to answer her sharp question. "How can you control me?" Song Enya smiled faintly, a trace of misery appearing on her haggard face. "Brother, in your eyes, I must be very laughable, right? In everyone's eyes, I ignored ethics and fell in love with a man who shouldn't and can't love. Isn't that laughable?" Song Enya showed great impatience. "You don't have to answer because I know what you're thinking. So, you don't have to care about me. Just take care of yourself, okay?" But Song Yunshi still wanted to try. "You don't have to care about me, you can't control me anyway. I'll make my own decisions for my own matters. It's not up to you to decide." As he spoke, he was about to close the door. Song Yunshi said angrily, "How dare you?" Song Enya's back paused. Song Yunshi gritted her teeth in anger. "Enya, you've gone too far. Everyone was worried about you, but why did you end up like this for a man? Without him, would you have died?" A light word fell into his ears, but it was exceptionally firm. She turned around and smiled sadly, but she was especially resolute. "I will die." Song Yunshi was suddenly speechless. Song Enya smiled faintly and enunciated each word clearly. "I love him more than my life." As soon as she finished speaking, she slammed the door shut and shut him outside. Song Yunshi said angrily, "Fine. Don't worry about me, fine. Then I won't care about you anymore." He turned around and went downstairs. Jiang Qiming walked over and asked worriedly, "How is it? Why do you care about her? She's courting death and said that she doesn't want me to care. What can I say?" Jiang Qiming was extremely worried. With a worried look, she sighed helplessly. "This child is too willful. Why is her temper so bad?" Chapter 1949. "Are you blaming me?" Jiang Qiming asked angrily. "Why are you saying that too? Are you and Enya trying to make me angry?" "I wouldn't dare." Song Yunshi snorted, took a sip of tea, and sank into the sofa as if she had lost all her strength. The army is already mentally and physically exhausting, and I still have to coax my two precious sisters when I come back. Mom, don't spoil her too much. Enya has grown up and has her own opinions. Her own opinions? Jiang Qimeng was speechless. What good opinions can this child have? She's always fooling around. That child, Xianxia, doesn't like her at all, yet she's still clinging to him. Isn't this a joke? Song Yunxi said, Uncle Mu is her uncle, and they are related by blood. No matter how much she likes him, there should be a limit. I think she's crazy and doesn't care about this basic concept of ethics at all. It's ridiculous that she wants to be with Uncle Mu. Actually, if two people are in love with each other, it's not impossible for them to be together. In many families, it's not a secret that cousins are connected by marriage, so it might not be a joke. Jiang Qimeng paused for a moment before expressing her opinion. Actually, I'm quite fond of that child too. Xianxia has extraordinary capabilities and is outstanding. No one in the Mu family can match up to his boldness and responsibility. That's why I don't object. The problem is that Xianxia only treats Enya as a sister. Feelings can't be forced. Moreover, he's especially stubborn. Mom, have you lost your mind too? If Dad hears this, he'll definitely scold you. Song Yunxi interrupted her. Your sister is insensible and fooling around, and you're blindly joining in? The world is going to be in chaos. Jiang Qimeng was so angry that she kept quiet. Actually, she really liked Mu Xianxia. It was a pity that Mu Xianxia only treated Enya as a sister. She sighed and asked, Are you hungry? If you're hungry, I'll prepare something for you. Song Yunxi waved her hand. No need. I'm not hungry. I've already eaten. After a pause, he added, Even if I haven't eaten yet, I'm full from being angered by Enya. Jiang Qimeng did not know whether to laugh or cry. She sat beside him, still looking worried. Who does Enya take after her temper? Song Yunxi was obviously still angry. She said angrily, She has been pampered since she was a child. How good can her temper be? Jiang Qimeng was furious. She's your sister. As her brother, how can you say that about her? Okay, I won't say any more, okay? Look, I only said a few words to her and you're siding with her. It would be strange if he wasn't spoiled. Song Yunxi stood up impatiently and walked upstairs. Jiang Qimeng asked, Where are you going? Let's go to the study and read. Go to sleep. Song Yunxi was in a bad mood and didn't want to talk to her anymore. Jiang Qimeng shook her head but did not say anything else. Inside the room, she walked to the balcony and dialed a number. How's the arrangement? Miss, don't worry. Everything has been arranged. The person has been brought out. It's all up to you. Keep an eye on her and don't let her run around. Song Enya smiled sinisterly and said casually, I want her to be useful the day after tomorrow. Understood. Chapter 1950. On the opening day of the Golden Eagle Film Festival, Yun Shishir woke up in the wee hours of the morning. The Golden Eagle Film Festival would be held in Sea City, the fashion capital. It was only a 3-hour flight from the capital to Sea City. Hence, after Mu Xianxia's morning meeting, he would return to Xiangdiwalk to pick her up and fly to Sea City. Yun Shishir was waiting for him at home. She did not know why, though, but she woke up early in the morning. After he left for the office, she lay in bed. She wanted to rest for a while more, but no matter how she tossed and turned, she could not fall asleep. Before this, if she was asked if she was nervous about participating in the film festival, she would have replied that she was not nervous. But now, she felt inexplicably uneasy. Everyone had high hopes for her. Actually, she did not have high hopes for herself. She was already satisfied that the film could break the box office record. As for the other awards, she did not have any hope at all. But everyone had high hopes for her to win an award. Lin Fengtian was even more certain that at least one Golden Eagle trophy for the Best Newcomer award was already in his hands. Yun Shishir thought that the awards had already been decided internally, but now that Lin Fengtian had made such a bold declaration, she felt even more uncertain about it. Qin Zhou also predicted that it wouldn't be a problem for her to win a newcomer's trophy. As for the Best Actor award, she probably had no hope. Yun Shirshir was extremely nervous. It would be fine if she won the award. But if she did not, she would become a laughingstock. Qin Zhou laughed at her for thinking too much. Even if she did not win the award, he would not laugh at her. If she won the award, it would be expected of her. If she did not win the award, she could only say that the judges were blind. She had such a good performance, but she did not win the award. There must be something going on. After all, among all the characters in the running, Yin Xiaochuan was the only one who was better than most of the veteran actors in terms of box office results and audience love. She would definitely win the Best Newcomer award. His irrefutable words made Yun Shirshir burst into laughter. How can it be so exaggerated? If there isn't, doesn't that mean there's something shady going on? Qin Zhou snorted coldly. If there's no newcomer award, just you wait. I'll carry a cannon to the organizing committee. Yun Shirshir was even happier. Sure. I'll visit you often then. Looking at me? To visit a prisoner, Yun Shirshir said matter-of-factly. Qin Zhou flew into a rage out of humiliation. How could I have accepted such a heartless person like you? Yun Shirshir nestled under the blanket. After checking her Weibo account, she got out of bed. They were just waiting for Mu Yaja to finish his meetings so that they could set off together. Every morning, Dishing Financial Group would hold a board meeting. Since he was going to attend the film festival in City B, he arranged everything in advance. After attending the film festival in City B, he would stay in a hotel and return to Beijing the next day. By the time he finished the meeting, he had already booked the plane tickets in advance. After Mu Yaja returned to his office and arranged everything, he suddenly heard the sound of high heels hitting the ground outside the door. Hurried footsteps and the voice of his accompanying secretary repeatedly tried to stop her. Mrs. Song, the president should still be in the meeting. Don't stop me. I have something important to talk to him about. Mrs. Song, go away. Chapter 1951. Shocked, Minyu turned to look at the door, only to see Jiang Qimeng barging in. She scanned the office and quickly spotted Mu Yaja, who was sitting at his desk, and walked over anxiously. Yaja! Mu Yaja looked up and could not help frowning when he saw that it was Jiang Qimeng. Sis, what's wrong? Why are you in such a hurry? Jiang Qimeng couldn't help complaining. Yaja, why can't I reach you on the phone? Mu Yaja calmly replied, I was in a meeting and just got back to my office. Chairman Mu. His secretary, who was standing at the door, greeted him awkwardly. He glanced at Jiang Qimeng, clearly confused. Minyu replied calmly, Go back to work. Sir. The secretary nodded, closed the door and left. Mu Yaja asked, Auntie, what's the matter? Jiang Qimeng was about to speak when she glanced at Minyu, who was standing at the side, with a conflicted expression. Mu Yaja also looked at him and signaled with his eyes. Minyu was someone who knew how to read people's expressions, so he immediately understood and respectfully retreated. After the door closed, Mu Yaja said, Speak. Yaja, something happened to Enya. Jiang Qimeng looked at him with tears in her eyes, her voice trembling. Mu Yaja was stunned. He looked at her in shock and narrowed his eyes in confusion. Something happened? Yes. Jiang Qimeng's throat was unusually hoarse from crying, and her eyes, especially, were red. It seemed that something had really happened. What happened? This morning, a servant went upstairs to knock on the door. There was no response, but she vaguely heard the sound of water flowing from the bedroom. The servant was worried that something had happened, so she immediately called Yunxi over. Yunxi was strong and kicked the door open. When he rushed in, he saw Enya lying in the bathtub. The bathtub was filled with water and was stained red with blood. Jiang Qimeng's eyes were filled with fear as she recounted the incident, as if the scene was still vivid in her mind. What happened to her? Mu Yaja could vaguely make out some clues. Enya, she's too silly. She took things too hard. Where is she now? When Yunxi found out about the accident, he rushed her to the hospital. Fortunately, she was found in time and was saved. However, after this girl woke up, her emotions were unstable and she couldn't leave at all. Otherwise, who knew what kind of extreme behavior she would do again? Now, Yunxi is taking care of her in the hospital. I didn't dare to tell your uncle about this because I was afraid that he would be angry. Jiang Qiming said with lingering fear. She really did not dare to imagine if she would have lost her daughter forever if she had not discovered it in time. Mu Yaja's heart was slightly at ease when he heard from his mother that his niece had been rescued. That's good. Chapter 1952. Mu Yaja lowered his eyes and said calmly, I have something on in the afternoon. I'm very busy and can't leave. Jiang Qiming thought that he would agree immediately. After all, apart from Yunxi and her father, Mu Yaja was probably the man who doted on her the most since she was young. Jiang Qiming knew very well that Mu Yaja doted on her because she had a face that was almost carved out of the same mold as Jiang Yishan. Moreover, as she grew older, she became more and more similar to Jiang Yishan. Jiang Qiming was also surprised. Jiang Yishan was the person Mu Yaja missed the most. The year his mother passed away, Mu Yaja almost collapsed. At that time, it was little Enya who accompanied him through it. Mu Yaja placed all his grief for his mother on Song Enya. Therefore, he doted on her very much. No matter what harsh conditions she put forward, he would fulfill them one by one. Only Song Enya could be willful and arrogant in front of him, and Mu Yaja tolerated her. All of this only came to an end when Xianxia appeared. Now, Mu Yaja was much colder to Song Enya. In the past, the Mu and Song families were very close. They moved around a lot. Now, with Mu Yaja's neglect of Song Enya, the relationship between the two families gradually fell to a freezing point. But now, Song Enya was lying on the bed. Although she had been saved, she was as if she was dead and did not say a word. No matter how Song Yunxi counseled, comforted, and made her happy, Song Enya remained indifferent. Song Enya was still indifferent. The only thing she said was, I want to see Brother Mu. That was all. Jiang Qiming could not bear to hear this. She left the hospital without Song Yunxi's knowledge and rushed all the way here. She did not care about her elegant demeanor and image. She only hoped that Mu Yaja would at least visit Enya at the hospital on account of the years of friendship between the two families. Yaja, I'm begging you, okay? You love Enya so much, but I don't know what happened to her. Maybe Enya did something she shouldn't have done. But she's still a child. She doesn't know any better and has made a mistake. Elder sister apologizes to you. Please forgive this child for my sake. Moreover, Enya also knows that she was wrong. She didn't have the face to see you, so she couldn't think straight and tried to kill herself. Just go to the hospital to see her and talk to her. At least, don't make her take things too hard. Auntie really can't lose her. Since she's already been saved, just take good care of her. There's no need for me to go. Mu Yaja still refused coldly. Jiang Qiming did not expect him to be so cold-hearted. Yaja, how can you say that? What did I say wrong? Mu Yaja raised his eyes and said matter-of-factly, she has an elder brother, a mother, and a father who dotes on her. Especially you, as her mother, should be the one by her side when something happens to her, not me. Yunxi, too, is your responsibility. It doesn't seem to have anything to do with me. How can you say that? Jiang Qiming widened her eyes in shock and was heartbroken. Yaja, how can you be so heartless? Even if Enya didn't do anything wrong, you shouldn't be so cruel, right? She's already in this state. What else do you want her to do? Chapter 1953. She was the one who cut her own wrist and hurt herself. If I remember correctly, she's already an adult. As an adult, shouldn't she be responsible for her own actions? Mu Yaja paused and a look of disgust appeared on his face. I have something on in the afternoon, so I can't visit her. But she only listens to you. Even if we want to counsel her, she won't listen at all. We really don't have a choice and don't know what to do. As the saying goes, the one who tied the bell should untie it. You're the knot in her heart. If you want to untie this knot in her heart, you have to do it yourself, right? Mu Yaja furrowed his brows impatiently and a sharp glint flashed across his eyes. I don't think I have this obligation. Yes, you don't have this obligation. But you don't have to be so heartless. Don't tell me you really don't have any feelings for Enya at all? What happened between the two of you? Aren't you and Enya very close? Why are we like strangers all of a sudden? Jiang Qiming was so anxious that she was at a loss. She looked at Mu Yaja with teary eyes and begged him over and over again. Mu Yaja's gaze gradually turned cold, and it was obvious that he had lost all his patience. Jiang Qiming sized up his expression and gritted her teeth. She said harshly, "Do you know that Enya likes you?" "You know." Jiang Qiming turned pale with fright. Mu Yaja looked up and met her surprised gaze coldly. "So, what do you want me to give her in return? Or do you want to be like her, disregarding human relationships and defying the ways of the world to be with her and give her back her passionate feelings?" Jiang Qiming was extremely embarrassed by his words. She looked at him awkwardly and her face was flushed red. She suddenly asked again, "Do you have feelings for Enya?" Mu Yaja pondered for a moment and nodded. "Yes. If you like Enya, it's not impossible for the two of you to be together. Look at Huaqin International's young Master Wang. He's also married to his cousin and that. Sister, do you know what you're saying?" Mu Yaja couldn't take it anymore and interrupted her. "I know. If the two of you like each other, what's wrong with being together? At most, we won't announce your marriage to the public. The Mu and Song families have a relationship and this marriage is considered a family. Enough." Mu Yaja slammed the document in his hand on the table. His patience had clearly reached its limit. "I've never said that I like her at all. Didn't you just saying, my feelings for her is just an older brother's love for his younger sister. But now, this feeling had more or less been obliterated. So, don't mention this matter again in the future. It makes me feel disgusted." After he finished speaking, Jiang Qiming, who followed him, Jiang. "No matter what, I promise you that I won't mention this matter again. But can you agree to this condition of mine? Go to the hospital to visit Enya and at least convince her not to let her do stupid things again, okay?" Mu Yaja remained indifferent. Jiang Qiming was so anxious that she broke down. "Yaja, do you want me to kneel on the ground and beg you?" Chapter 1954. She had no other choice but to beg him. Alas, Mu Yaja did not care about her humble request at all. "That's enough. You can leave now." Mu Yaja was annoyed beyond words. Just as he opened the door, he heard a thud behind him. His heart skipped a beat, and he turned around to see Jiang Qiming kneeling on the ground with tears streaming down her cheeks. Mu Yaja was furious. "What are you doing?" I'm begging you. I won't force you no matter what you do in the future. But at least, I'm begging you to save Enya this time." At this moment, Jiang Qiming no longer had the elegance of a noblewoman. Her luxurious clothes couldn't hide her disheveled and humble appearance at this moment. She was no longer the glamorous mayor's wife. At this moment, she was just a pitiful and sad mother. She had spoiled her daughter to such an arrogant and willful character. However, she had spoiled her daughter so much, but in the end, she still had to ask others to save her daughter's will to live. Jiang Qiming's face was full of worry, and her eyes were filled with desolate tears. Mu Yaja said coldly, "Don't you think you look terrible right now? Get up." "I won't get up if you don't promise me." She was sad and stubborn. "If you don't promise me, I'll kneel until you do. Are you threatening me?" A sharp glint flashed across Mu Yaja's eyes. Jiang Qiming did not shy away. "Only this time. Please allow me to threaten you once." Mu Yaja slowly narrowed his eyes. Because of his anger, the veins on the back of his hands were clearly visible. By noon, Xianxia had already packed her luggage. She entrusted the two children to Yun Yeqing and the nanny. She was only relieved after giving them some instructions. Yu nagged as she helped her tidy up her clothes. "Mommy, you're so naggy. Xiao Yichen and I can take care of ourselves. You don't have to worry. Just worry about whether you can win the award." Xiao Yichen raised his eyebrows and teased, "Exactly. Mommy is not as good at taking care of people as you, so it doesn't make a difference whether Mommy is at home or not." Xianxia seemed to hear the sound of her heart breaking. Was Xiao Yichen mocking her? "Why?" Yu smiled and said, "I'm happy that Mommy is away on a business trip. When Mommy isn't around, I just have to take good care of Xiao Yichen. If Mommy were here, I would have more to worry about." At this moment, Yun Shirshi's heart seemed to shatter into countless pieces. She clutched her chest, feeling as if her heart had been pierced by 10,000 arrows. Baby, do you have to hurt mommy like this? You couldn't be bothered with her sadness. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Xianxia folding the gown and immediately stopped her. Wait, if you do this, the gown will wrinkle. Xianxia looked up blankly and stopped what he was doing. It turned out that he wanted to fold the gown into a square like any other piece of clothing. However, this way the gown would wrinkle. What should I do then? Let me do it. Oh, then this gown needs to be ironed. Let me do it. Yu was as busy as a nanny, running around in circles. Yun Shirshir wanted to help, but Yu immediately chased her away. Both of you, go sit on the sofa. Don't be a hindrance. Chapter 1955. Half a minute later, Yun Shirshir obediently sat on the sofa with Xianxia in her arms. Yu busied himself with packing. In less than 10 minutes, all the luggage was packed. Phew, Yu wiped the sweat off his forehead with a handkerchief. It's done. He looked up and saw Yun Shirshir's starry eyes and Xianxia's admiring expression. His lips twitched as he looked at them speechlessly. What are you doing? You're so virtuous. Whoever marries you in the future will be blessed. Yun Shirshir was touched that she had raised such a perfect son. Xianxia looked at him with admiration. Yu, if I were a young girl, I'd definitely chase after you to be my wife. Get lost. Yu looked at him with disdain. Whoever marries you will be unlucky. Why? Xianxia cried out in grievance. Am I not outstanding? You're too outstanding, so I'm not worthy of you. While the three of them were bickering, the doorbell suddenly rang. Daddy is back. Xianxia raised his eyebrows in excitement. Yu found it strange. He walked to the door and opened it while muttering, Daddy didn't bring the key? Just as he opened the door, he saw Qin Zhou standing outside. Seeing the door open, he lowered his head and was surprised to see a little lad standing at the doorway. The lad sized him up with his watery eyes. Hello, little kid. Qin Zhou greeted him with a smile. He was surprised at first, but it took him a while to realize that this child, who looked so much like Muichen, was probably the boss's son, Yun Tianyu. Although he had never seen him before, he could deduce his identity. Muichen walked to the door and sized him up curiously. He did not know Qin Zhou, but the latter knew him. For you? Muichen immediately became vigilant and asked suspiciously. He completely regarded Qin Zhou as a strange uncle with bad intentions and was very vigilant. Qin Zhou chuckled. I'm looking for your mommy. Oh, you must be mommy's manager. Yu looked him up and down and concluded. Qin Zhou was surprised. How do you know? I recognize your voice. When Qin Zhou called Yun Shirshir to remind her about her schedule, Yi would sometimes be by her side. He was very sensitive to sounds. Basically, he would never forget what he heard. Therefore, as soon as Qin Zhou spoke, he guessed his identity. Little kid, you're so smart. Yu opened the door and invited him in. Yun Shirshir was surprised to see him. Why you here? I'm here on my boss's orders to bring you to Sea City. Oh, Yun Shirshir replied and nodded at first. Suddenly she reacted and asked quizzically, where is he? Is he busy? The flight should be booked. It's at 1 p.m. Is he going directly to the airport? With that, Yun Shirshir got up from the sofa and walked toward him. Qin Zhou suddenly hesitated. Boss, can't go to Sea City. As he spoke, he observed her expression and appeared to be very cautious. Yun Shirshir was stunned. He can't go to Sea City? Maybe he has something to do. I was about to board the plane, but he called and asked me to bring you to Sea City, so I hurried over. Chapter 1956. What kind of reason was that? Back then, she had been worried that Mu Yaja would be too busy to make time, so she had repeatedly asked him about it. However, he had vowed that nothing was more important than walking the red carpet with her. He had said such nice words, but now he was breaking his promise. What was so important about it? He had always been a man of his word. Yun Shirshir was stunned for a moment, and then her eyes turned cold. Didn't he promise to go to the film festival with me in Sea City? Why is he suddenly not going? Maybe he has something important to do. Qin Zhou did not understand the situation, but Disheng Financial Group had a lot of work to do. It was understandable that Mu Yaja could not go at the last minute. Yun Shirshir was still in disbelief and asked, "What is he busy with?" He didn't say. He didn't say? Yun Shirshir, who had been elated, felt as if a basin of cold water had been poured over her head. She suddenly felt wronged. They had promised each other something, but he had decided not to go just like that. Did he even consider her feelings? Didn't he say that he would walk the red carpet with her? If he was not going, whose arm should she hold to attend the film festival? Qin Zhou seemed to have seen through her concerns and said mildly, "I'll walk the red carpet with you at the film festival." Yun Shirshir did not say anything when she heard that. She returned to the sofa in a huff and lowered her head, letting her hair fall to cover her disappointed expression. Yu and Xiao Yichen looked at each other and frowned at the same time. They did not know what had happened. Seeing this, Qin Zhou was a little embarrassed. He said half-jokingly, "Why? You don't want me to walk the red carpet with you?" Yun Shirshir lowered her head even more. She did not say anything, but it was obvious that Mu Yaja breaking his promise made her very disappointed. Qin Zhou walked over, sat down beside her, and patted her shoulder gently. "Although I don't know what's holding you up, Disheng Financial Group has a lot of work to do. It's reasonable that you can't leave." "Liar." Yun Shirshir suddenly spat out 2 words expressionlessly. Her tone was desolate, and her voice was hoarse from holding back her tears. "Liar. Qin Zhou, you made a promise, but you went back on your words." "Liar, Shirshir, if he's not going, I'm not going either." Yun Shirshir said a little angrily, "Go ahead." "Shirshir, don't be willful. It doesn't matter if the boss doesn't go, but if you don't go and don't go on stage during the award ceremony, people will inevitably say that you're acting like a big shot. Doesn't matter." She didn't care about any awards, nor did she care about the Best Newcomer Award or the Best Actress Award. She was looking forward to being able to witness it with him. But without him, everything seemed to have lost its meaning. Yun Shirshir shrunk her shoulders even more. She wanted to cry, but because Yu and Xiao Yichen were present, she tried her best to hold back her tears. Qin Zhou did not know how to comfort her. He had thought that if the boss did not go, he could at most explain and she would just laugh it off. He did not expect her to care so much about this matter. "Shirshir, don't be sad. You missed the film festival this time, but there's always next time. You just debuted and this is your first film festival. There will be many more in the future as long as you want." Chapter 1957. Yu's heart ached as he walked over. He slowly squatted down in front of Yun Shirshir and gently placed his little hand on the back of her hand. "Mommy, don't be sad. Daddy must have had something important to attend to, so he had no choice but to stand you up. Mommy has always been generous. You won't be angry because of this, right?" Yun Shirshir pursed her lips. It would have been better if Yu hadn't consoled her. Now that he had, she was affected and a few drops of tears rolled down her cheeks. There was a loud smack. The tears fell onto the back of Yu's hand. Yu's gaze fell on the tears that had landed on the back of his hand. His gaze instantly sharpened. God knew that at this moment he wished he could tear Daddy apart with his bare hands. He had promised Mommy that he would walk the red carpet with her, but he had stood her up. What the hell was going on? He had dropped the ball. He was angry. But even if he was angry, he couldn't complain about Daddy in front of Mommy at this time. As a son, he had to reconcile the relationship between Daddy and Mommy. Hence, he smiled and teased Yun Shirshir, "Mommy, don't be sad. If you're so sad, you will be heartbroken." When Qin Zhou heard this, he was surprised. How could an ordinary 7-year-old child say such words with such high EQ? An ordinary child would definitely be hugging his mother helplessly and at a loss at this moment. However, this child was full of spirit. He even knew how to comfort an adult. He wasn't simple. It was obvious that he was a very intelligent child. Xiao Yichen also ran over and hugged her tenderly. "Mommy, don't be sad. If you don't mind, Xiao Yichen can walk the red carpet with you, okay?" Yu pushed him away in disdain. "Go away. Even if I have to walk the red carpet with Mommy, It won't be your turn. It won't be your turn either. You're so short. Mommy has to bend down to hold your hand. That won't be elegant. Xianxia was amused by the two children's banter. Her tears turned into laughter, and she couldn't help but say, "All right. You two, stop fooling around." Yu and Xianxia looked at her. Seeing that she was finally smiling, they felt relieved. Qinzhou also said, "The two of them are really sensible." Sure, don't be angry. Perhaps the boss really has something urgent to deal with. Don't complain too much. Just come back and ask him clearly. At most, let him kneel on the washboard for a night. Just take it as venting your anger. How would I dare? Xianxia said grumpily. However, Qinzhou laughed and said, "If you don't dare, no one in the world would dare to make the boss kneel on a washboard." Xianxia curled her lips into a smile. The clouds in her heart were dispelled, and she finally felt a little better. Okay, I got it. Maybe he really has something important to do. Forget it, I won't force him. She stood up and smiled at Qinzhou. Wait for me. I'll pack up and go to the airport with you. Okay, be good. Go ahead. Xianxia immediately went to her room. After she entered the room, Yu asked him quizzically, "You really don't know why Daddy is late for the film festival?" Qinzhou was stunned for a moment. He shook his head blankly. "You're not allowed to hide anything from me." "No, little master. I really don't know what the boss is doing. He didn't tell me." To Wuxia, he was just a small fry. How could he pry into the boss's affairs? Qinzhou broke out in a cold sweat. This child was unusually sharp. He even knew how to interrogate people. Yu nodded and dispelled his doubts. He said to him, "Daddy won't be around for the next 2 days. Please take care of Mommy." Chapter 1958. After Xianxia finished packing, she walked out. Yu and Xianxia walked her to the door. Qinzhou ordered someone to open the trunk and Xianxia rushed to stuff Xianxia's luggage into the trunk. Qinzhou was dumbfounded. He stood rooted to the ground and sighed. Is this really a 7-year-old child? He's as strong as a bull. Haha. Yu laughed out loud. Wuxia is a little black bull. Wuxia was speechless. What do you mean by black bull? I'm not a black bull. I'm clearly very fair. Who's talking about your skin color? I'm talking about your strength. It's like a little black bull, Yu ridiculed. Wuxia glared at him helplessly. He felt like he was going to be covered in bruises. A little black bull was so ugly. Why did he compare him to a little black bull? Wuxia felt very hurt. Qinzhou couldn't help but laugh out loud. These two children were really too interesting, especially Yu, the little devil. Xianxia said helplessly, You always bully Xianxia because you're smart. Don't think that you can bully brother just because you have a glib tongue." Wuxia felt even more hurt. He clutched his chest and looked helplessly at Xianxia. Was Mommy insinuating that she was stupid? She felt like her heart was being stabbed again. Xianxia clutched his chest and looked pitifully at Xianxia. It would have been better if she hadn't said anything. The moment she did, he felt like his heart was being stabbed again. Xianxia also realized that she had unintentionally said something very cruel. She hurriedly apologized. "Xianxia, I'm sorry. Mommy didn't mean it that way. I just wanted you to not bully you." "Mommy is bullying me." "Xianxia, ignore Mommy." Wuxia stood at the side with tears in his eyes. He tugged at his sleeves and looked like he was about to cry but had no tears. Xianxia's heart softened when she saw him. She hurried over and hugged Wuxia in her arms. "Mommy was wrong. Xianxia, don't be angry. Otherwise, Mommy won't feel at ease before boarding the plane. Mommy can only forgive Mommy if I kiss her." Wuxia pouted. Yu gritted her teeth. This guy learns very quickly. She had mastered the skill of acting coquettishly that he was so proud of. This was a trick that he was used to, and it worked on his mother every time. Yet he had secretly learned it. Xianxia cupped Xianxia's chubby little face and gently kissed his tender cheeks. She hurriedly apologized. "Xianxia, forgive Mommy. Be good and wait for Mommy to come back, okay?" "But then Mommy must bring home a trophy." Xianxia encouraged her. Xianxia nodded and instantly felt smug. But Mommy will work hard. I'll bring home a trophy. On the way back, Xianxia quietly looked out of the window. The traffic was congested, and her ears were filled with the sound of anxious horns. It was annoying. The traffic in the city seemed to be especially congested. It was noon, but the traffic was still so congested that it made her feel frustrated. Qin Zhou sat beside her and chatted with a bunch of bad friends in the WeChat group. Occasionally, he would look up and chat with her. The atmosphere was calm. Xianxia still felt a little uneasy. Women were very sensitive and tended to overthink things. Her sixth sense told her that Wuxia must have missed the appointment because something had happened. Most importantly, if something had happened, he should have at least informed her. Chapter 1959. However, he did not. Xianxia could not help but let her imagination run wild. The more she thought about it, the more uneasy she felt. She decided to give Wuxia a call when they arrived at the airport and before boarding the plane to ask about the situation. At the hospital, Jiang Qiming led Wuxia into the ward. As soon as they pushed the door open, they saw Song Yunxi silently guarding by the bed. The beeping sound of the medical machine was endless. Song Enya was lying quietly on the bed with a respirator on. Her eyes were closed as if she was still unconscious. 2 blood bags hung by the bed, continuously transfusing blood into her body. Even though she was discovered in time, she still lost too much blood and needed an emergency blood transfusion. Hearing the sound of the door opening, Song Yunxi turned her head abruptly and saw Jiang Qiming walking in. Behind her, Wuxia slowly stepped through the door. The moment his tall figure appeared in the ward, it suddenly felt that the huge ward had become narrow. He stood there expressionlessly. The cold and domineering aura around him instantly froze the air in the ward. Wuxia's gaze fell on the person lying quietly on the bed, and his face suddenly darkened. He thought that Song Enya was up to something again. He did not expect that something would really happen. Uncle Mu? Song Yunxi was stunned for a moment. She looked at the person who had suddenly appeared and felt a little uneasy. What he did not know was that, while she was out, she had actually gone to Disheng Financial Group to invite Wuxia over. Jiang Qiming and Song Yunxi looked at each other and pursed their lips. Yaxia is worried about Enya, so he came over to see her. Song Yunxi immediately stood up and left the seat beside the bed for him. Wuxia waved his hand coldly and stood by the bed with no intention of sitting down. He glanced at Song Enya and saw that her complexion was very poor. Her skin was pale, obviously a symptom of excessive blood loss. He then looked at her cracked and dry lips and frowned. "How is he?" Song Yunxi replied. "He has just been rescued, but his condition is not very good. He is receiving a blood transfusion now. After the blood transfusion, we will see how he is." "When did this happen?" Wuxia raised his eyebrows and asked. "It happened this morning." Song Yunxi paused and added, "When the maid knocked on the door this morning, there was no response. She only heard the loud sound of water flowing from the room. She was worried and called me. I kicked the door open and saw Enya lying in the bathtub with her clothes on. The water in the bathtub was dyed red with blood." Wuxia glanced at his niece's wrist. At this moment, her injured wrist was already wrapped in gauze. However, the wound was too deep. Song Enya steeled her heart and made a deep cut. Although the wound had been bandaged, blood still seeped out, and it was extremely glaring. He had already been rescued. However, the scar on his wrist would leave a deep mark no matter what. Song Yunxi felt sorry for her and hated her for being so disappointing. Why did she have to take her life so lightly? Jiang Qiming walked over and pulled Song Yunxi's hand. She said slowly, "Yunxi, I have something to ask you. Come with me outside the door. I still want to watch over my sister. I'm afraid that she will cry and throw a tantrum when she wakes up." Song Yunxi was worried. Chapter 1960. Song Enya had woken up once before, but when she opened her eyes and found herself in the hospital, she cried and threw a tantrum. She even almost pulled out the drip. Song Yunxi was strong and managed to control her. After a few coaxing words, she calmed down and fell asleep again. Her tantrum had really scared him out of his wits. Jiang Qiming rebuked, With Yaja here, even if Enya wakes up, he can take good care of her. Be good. With that, Jiang Qiming walked over. Song Yunxi immediately understood what she meant and walked over, closing the door behind her. Mu Yaja frowned slightly. He and Song Enya were the only ones left in the ward. Initially, his intention was to come over and take a look. If she was fine, he wanted to leave. However, now that Jiang Qiming and Song Yunxi had left, he could not leave. Mu Yaja felt annoyed and slowly sat down by the bed. His gaze fell on Song Enya's extremely pale face and his eyes darkened slightly. He seemed to have seen Jiang Yishan lying on the hospital bed, on the verge of death. At this moment, Song Enya's haggard face was too similar to Jiang Yishan's, so much so that he could not help but feel pity for her. However, he was only in a trance for a moment before he immediately woke up. The person in front of him was Song Enya, not his mother. His mother had passed away. At this thought, Mu Yaja closed his eyes in exhaustion. His mother's death was his most painful nightmare. Back then, if not for Enya accompanying him all the time, he would not have been able to get through it. He had placed all his longing for his mother on her. However, although this girl was arrogant and willful when she was a young girl, she was also an innocent young lady. How did she become like this now? This made him extremely disgusted. What did she mean by this? Cutting her wrists? Suicide? Was she planning to use a method that was close to self-harm to punish him for being heartless and provoke him? Or was she delusional enough to use this method to gain his sympathy? Did she think that this would make him feel guilty? Amid Mu Yaja's complicated thoughts, Song Enya slowly opened her eyes and woke up. What entered his sight was a snow-white ceiling. The unique smell of disinfectant in the hospital was pungent. Out of the corner of her eye, she suddenly caught a glimpse of a figure. She abruptly turned her head and looked at the man sitting quietly by the bed without saying a word. A gratified smile suddenly appeared on her face. "Brother Mu, you're here?" Mu Yaja said indifferently, "You're still weak. Don't talk too much." He didn't want to hear her voice either. Song Enya smiled bleakly and pursed her lips. Just as she was about to speak, Mu Yaja frowned and asked coldly, "What's your intention for inviting me here?" "What do you mean? Enya, is this also one of your methods?" Mu Yaja kicked her coldly and said almost cruelly, "Using such a self-harming method to gain my sympathy and pity, is this your ambition?" "I'm not." She looked panicked and shook her head hurriedly. Mu Yaja suddenly raised his voice. "Then, who are you putting on a show for?" His voice was not loud, but every word that fell into her ears was as cruel as a knife. Chapter 1961. "So, are you here to denounce me?" Song Enya felt a sharp pain in her heart. Biting her lips tightly, she looked miserable. "I didn't put on a show for you. Don't say that. You didn't have to come, I didn't ask you to, right?" Mu Yaja sneered. "It's good that you didn't put on a show. Otherwise, I'd think that you're cheap." "Cheap?" Song Enya smiled sadly as she felt her heart turn cold all of a sudden. Every word he said was 10,000 times crueler than the physical pain she was going through. Even when she was on the brink of death, she had never shed a tear in despair. However, at this moment, his heartless words made her bite her lower lip. 2 streams of tears rolled down her cheeks and slid into her mouth. "Brother Mu, how can you be so cruel to me? What did I do wrong for you to hurt me with such cruel words?" Hurt her? Did he hurt her? She was clearly the one who belittled and hurt him. He had just taken a look at her wound and carefully examined it. Although the wound was deep, it was not the most fatal part. At least she had left some leeway. Even if she lost blood for a long time, it was not fatal. If she had cut her aorta, she would have lost her life in less than an hour. Since she had deliberately left some leeway, there was no need to think about what her motive was. When he entered the ward at first glance, he thought that she had really taken it too hard. However, when he calmed down and thought about it carefully, he felt even more disappointed. She actually used such methods to put on a show for him. Was she trying to take pity on him? Born in a wealthy family, he had seen many fights for favor and all kinds of underhanded methods. Just the few mistresses in the Mu family were already used to her tricks. Did she think that he could not tell? Unreasonable pestering. He sneered coldly and spat out these 4 words. Unreasonable pestering. Xianxia widened her eyes in shock. She could no longer hold back the tears in her eyes. They rolled down her cheeks and dripped onto the white bedsheets. She clutched the bedsheets tightly. She was full of grievances but did not know how to vent them. She was deliberately torturing herself, using self-mutilation, hoping to attract his attention even if it was just a glance. She was pestering him endlessly, trying to win his heart. But why did he say that she was such a shameless person? Was it wrong to love someone? You didn't treat me like this before. Why did you treat me so cruelly? It's not fair. Xianxia broke down and wept bitterly. It was unfair. What right did Xianxia have to have everything he had? But even if she didn't ask for any status and only wanted to receive 1/3 of the love he gave Xianxia, such a small ambition couldn't be satisfied. Enough. Wuxia coldly tugged at the corner of his lips, showing his impatience. Enya, I'm warning you for the last time. I'm very busy and don't have the time to play house with you. With that, he stood up and prepared to leave. Xianxia was so flustered that she hurled a cup at him. Crash. A sound was heard. The cup flew over his shoulder, hit the door, and fell to the ground, shattering into pieces. Just like her broken heart at this moment. Chapter 1962. Wuxia's back stiffened for a moment. He stood rooted to the ground for a moment, seemingly unmoved by her urging him to stay. This time, however, he took another step forward without hesitation. Xianxia was thoroughly flustered. She did not know where she got the courage from, but in a fit of anger, she ruthlessly pulled out the blood drip, threw off the blanket, rolled off the bed, and rushed toward him barefooted. Brother Mu! Xianxia hugged him tightly from behind, her arms tightly entwined around his waist. Let go! I won't let go. Wuxia was thoroughly enraged. He flung her arms away and turned around. However, the next second, as if she had gone crazy, she suddenly hugged his shoulders, stood on her tiptoes, and kissed his thin lips fiercely. Startled, he hurriedly tried to avoid her, but it was too late. Xianxia's weathered and dry lips kissed the side of his lips. She attacked him like a madwoman, kissing him on the lips and biting him hard. This bite caused his brain to freeze for a second. By the time he reacted, his hands had already moved to push her away forcefully. Are you crazy? Xianxia was caught off guard. Losing her balance, she fell backward and landed heavily on the ground. She stared fixedly at him. Because she had bitten down hard just now, her pale lips were stained with scarlet blood. At a glance, she looked as demonic as a vampire. Xianxia smiled foolishly. The tip of her tongue gently traced the traces of blood on her lips. The ambition in her eyes was not concealed at all. Wuxia could not calm his anger. His expression was stiff and cold. He raised his hand and swiped his finger across his thin lips, only to come in contact with a bloody taste. He wiped it away harshly and glared at her. Are you crazy? Yes, I am crazy. But you're the one who drove me crazy. Brother Mu, are you satisfied now? Are you satisfied now that I've gone crazy for you and am willing to do anything for you? Wuxia looked at her as if he was looking at a hopeless patient. The disgust in his eyes was undisguised. You're hopeless? Yes. I am incurable. I like you, and because I like you, I want to get you. Is that wrong? Xianxia yelled recklessly as if she had lost her mind and started spouting nonsense. But I'm not greedy anymore. I'm not asking for anything. I'm not greedy for more. I just hope that we can go back to how we used to be. That's enough, okay? What? Xianxia smiled. The innocent look on her face was distorted by the bloodstains on her lips. You're still my brother Mu. I want to hear you call me Enya, gently like before, and dote on me without restraint. I won't have any wishful thinking about you anymore, but I hope that we can go back to how we used to be, okay? Wuxia was silent for a while before he sneered, We can't go back. The smile on Xianxia's face froze. Why? She couldn't believe it and asked hysterically, Why? How overboard is my request that you can't even tolerate it? Jiang Qiming was talking to Song Yunxi at the door when she heard the commotion from the ward. Worried, she barged in. Chapter 1963. Song Enya watched him leave in a daze. Looking at his cold and resolute back view, she broke down and burst into tears. Song Yunxi felt as if a knife was being twisted in her heart. She walked over, picked her up, and placed her on the bed. When she looked down and saw the back of her hand dripping with blood, she was shocked. "What's wrong with you?" Jiang Qiming immediately said. "She probably pulled out the foredrip. I'll call the nurse over and redo it." "You're not allowed to go." Song Enya threw a tantrum. "Don't bother about me, okay? Don't mess around." Song Yunxi scolded her with a tough attitude. However, this tough attitude undoubtedly agitated her even more. Song Enya pushed him away and covered her face with the blanket, letting herself sob uncontrollably. "Don't bother about me. Let's go, let's all go. Let me fend for myself." When Song Yunxi heard this, she scolded angrily, "What nonsense are you talking about? How can we not care about you? Let you fend for yourself. What's wrong with you? Why are you torturing yourself for a man?" Jiang Qiming's heart ached. She went forward and tugged at Song Yunxi's sleeve, telling her to stop talking. Song Yunxi flung her hand away. "Why are you still protecting her at this point? Your sister is already very upset. Don't agitate her anymore." Jiang Qiming's heart ached. "Agitate? I just want to scold her. It's best if I scold her until she wakes up. Look at her now, what has she become? She committed suicide by slitting her wrists. If word gets out, won't she become a laughingstock? She's the mayor's daughter, yet she's willing to disregard ethics and morals for a man. I feel embarrassed for her." Song Enya suddenly raised her head and confronted him. "Song Yunxi, have you had enough? Do I need you to care about me? If you think I'm embarrassing, then don't care about me. You." Song Yunxi pointed at her angrily. However, how could Song Enya be willing to lower her head? She raised her head high and glared at him. Song Yunxi was so angry that she swung her hand and walked to the side. Her anger could not be appeased. "How many times have I told you that it's impossible between you and Uncle Mu? It's not like I haven't tried to persuade you to give up. But now that things have turned out this way, the friendship between the Mu and Song families is probably going to be severed." As Song Yunxi spoke, she turned around and glared at her. "Enya, you're not young anymore. You're not a 7 or 8-year-old child anymore. You shouldn't be so willful. I don't care. Even if I can't have him, I won't let anyone touch him. At worst, I won't be able to get anything." Song Enya said willfully. Song Yunxi was so angry that she choked and had nothing to say. If not for Jiang Qiming's protection, he would have slapped her long ago. This disappointing sister of his, how could she pester him endlessly? No wonder Uncle Mu left so angrily. If it were any other man, they would think that such a woman was unreasonable. Jiang Qiming stood at the side, feeling helpless. Seeing her daughter, whom she doted on, in such a sorry state, she felt heartache and hated her for being so disappointing. At least her husband did not know about this. Otherwise, Song Enya would definitely be grounded. Song Yunxi shook her head, clearly disappointed in her sister. "Back then, it was the whole family who doted on you and spoiled you that caused you to have such a temper. It's too late for me to regret it now." When Song Enya was young, she was born after Song Yunxi. At that time, Song Yunxi did not exist. Chapter 1964. Every time the Song family produced a daughter, they would treat her like a pearl. Other than the stars and moon in the sky, she would get whatever she wanted. This also made her want to fight for something if she could not get it. Even if she was badly hurt, she would not give up. There was once when Song Yunxi wanted a doll of hers. She was unwilling and would rather break it than give it to her sister. This was Song Enya's nature. Song Enya sat on the bed and hugged the blanket as she cried. Jiang Qiming stood at the side and sighed. Song Yunxi was so annoyed that his head swelled to twice its size. "Mom, don't bother about her. If she wants to die, let her be. If she really has the ability, I'd like to see what she can do." As soon as Song Yunxi finished speaking, Jiang Qiming glared at him. Shut up. Don't you think the situation is chaotic enough? Song Yunshi narrowed his eyes with a manic expression. He paced back and forth on the spot and suddenly sneered. If you want to protect her, then continue to do so. Let's see how long you can protect her. We still have to clean up the mess for her now. When she gets out of hand, I'll see who will clean up the mess for her. With that, Song Yunshi slammed the door and left without looking back. Song Enya was so angry that she gripped the blanket even tighter. She gritted her teeth as tears streamed down her face. Jiang Qiming sighed as her eyes reddened. She walked forward and sat by the bed. She wanted to say something, but she was afraid that she would agitate her again. Thus, she decided to wait until her emotions had calmed down a little before having a good talk with her. Enya, don't be angry. Brother said those words in anger. Don't take it to heart. Song Enya wrapped herself in the blanket angrily and sobbed silently. At the airport, Qin Zhou walked over after checking in his luggage. Yun Shishir sat on the bench. She had already made a few calls, but Mu Yaja's phone still did not get through. She frowned in disappointment with a solemn expression. Qin Zhou handed her a bottle of water, but Yun Shishir shook her head. I'm not thirsty. Qin Zhou raised his eyebrows. You seem to have a lot on your mind. What are you thinking about? No. A bell suddenly rang. Yun Shishir was stunned. Then, a hint of joy appeared in her eyes. She picked up the phone and answered the call without looking at it. Pa. Yun Shishir, you lost. Song Enya's bone-chilling voice came from the other end. Yun Shishir's face froze. Song Enya? Yun Shishir smiled and said coldly, I lost? What do you mean? Do you know where Brother Mu is? Song Enya's bewitching voice drifted into her ears. Yun Shishir's face turned pale and she fell silent. Didn't you say that Brother Mu dotes on you a lot? Didn't you tell me that you were more important than me in Brother Mu's heart? But what is the truth? No matter how important you are, you're not as important as me. Brother Mu is with me. Yun Shishir frowned and looked at Qin Zhou abruptly. The latter looked confused. What's wrong? Who called? Song Enya's voice sounded again. I told you that you're full of yourself, but you didn't believe me. In fact, Brother Mu would rather be by my side than accompany you to the film festival. Reality has proven that I'm much more important than you. Shut up. Chapter 1965. Trying to drive a wedge between us? Song Enya's smug laughter could be heard from the other end of the line. The more she laughed, the less confident Yun Shishir became. D***it. She clearly trusted him, but why was her confidence getting weaker and weaker in the face of such laughter? Yun Shishir bit her red lips tightly, trying her best to suppress the rising chill in her heart. Are you done laughing? Song Enya's laughter gradually stopped. Amidst the uneasy silence, she smiled sinisterly. Don't you know clearly whether he's trying to drive a wedge between us? Why did Brother Mu break the contract? Yun Shishir, you'd better stop lying to yourself. Brother Mu doesn't care about you as much as you think he does. Yun Shishir could not take it anymore. She hung up the phone abruptly with a pale face. Looking at her ashen face, Qin Zhou finally realized the seriousness of the situation. He did not know who had called, but the unbridled laughter that came from the other end of the line was hair-raising. Who's calling? I don't know. Don't ask me, I don't know anything. Her emotions were in a mess right now. Yun Shishir forced a smile and looked up at him. Are we going to register soon? Qin Zhou nodded his head blankly and responded. Yun Shishir switched off her phone, put it in her bag, and sat on the stool silently. Qin Zhou found this matter extremely strange. It was just a phone call, yet her complexion was so bad and sickly. Still, he could not probe further. If she did not say anything, he was in no position to get to the bottom of it. After a long silence, Yun Shishir suddenly asked sullenly, Did Mu Yaja really not tell you the reason why he cancelled the film festival? Qin Zhou was stunned for a moment before he quickly realized that she was suspecting that he knew about his boss's intentions but was hiding something from her. He quickly clarified, Boss didn't say anything. If he did, I won't hide it from you. Okay, thank you. Sure, don't think too much, and don't doubt your position in the boss's heart. At least, I've never seen a woman occupy such an important position in his heart in all the years I've worked for him. Qin Zhou quickly extinguished the fire. He thought to himself, boss is really too unkind. He left such a mess. He promised Xianxia to go to the film festival with him. Why did he break his promise just like that? Today, he was about to board the plane when Mu Yaja's assistant called and said that the boss might not be able to catch the afternoon flight. He asked him to fly to Sea City with Xianxia. Therefore, he hurried over to pick up Xianxia. However, the boss didn't explicitly say that he wouldn't fly to Sea City. Qin Zhou suspected that he was busy with business and couldn't leave, so he made a temporary arrangement. If the boss couldn't come, then he would let Xianxia walk the red carpet with him. The plane was not delayed at all. Qin Zhou and Xianxia successfully boarded the flight to Sea City. Xianxia had just sat down in her seat when an extremely surprised voice suddenly came from the side. Xianxia. She turned her head blankly and saw Hua Jin sitting in the seat next to her. They were separated by an aisle, and he was looking at her with some surprise. What a coincidence! You're also on this flight? Yeah. Chapter 1966. Beside Hua Jin sat his manager. She was a middle-aged woman who looked capable and experienced. She wore glasses and was a little reserved but still polite. At least when she saw Qin Jie, she would give a friendly smile. Chairman Qin, can I change seats with you? I want to sit with Xianxia. Qin Zhou heartlessly rejected. No, if Xianxia gets airsick, I still have to take care of her. I'll take care of her. I'll take care of her. I'm good at taking care of people. Leave Xianxia to me. Qin Zhou coldly glanced at him. I don't trust you. Hua Jin put on a sincere smile and put his palms together to please Qin Zhou. At the side, Hua Jin's manager gently said, Hua Jin, behave yourself and sit in your seat. Suddenly, she lowered her voice and warned, if Miss knows that you're sitting with another woman, she'll be angry. Don't worry, I'll coax her later. After saying that, Hua Jin stood up and stuck to Qin Zhou, coaxing and pestering. Qin Zhou couldn't stop him and begged for mercy. He obediently gave up his seat. After sitting down, Hua Jin pestered her to talk. Xianxia, we're really fated. I didn't expect that we'll be on the same flight. I originally thought that the flight would be boring. Yeah. Who are you walking the red carpet with this time? Qin Zhou. Why is it him? Why don't you walk the red carpet with me? I'll be alone. No. Don't. Qin Zhou snorted. Don't think that I can't hear you when you try to steal my girl behind my back. Hua Jin stuck out his tongue mischievously and said in a flirtatious manner, as the #1 costumer, I have a sizable fan base. Besides, I'm so pretty. Walking down the red carpet with Xianxia, a handsome man and a beautiful woman with good looks and charisma, will definitely be a match made in heaven. When the time comes, I'll definitely beat many other actors and become the center of attention under the spotlight. Xianxia will definitely attract a lot of fans if she walks the red carpet with me. Qin Zhou complained silently, are all the people in the circle anti-fans? Hua Jin retorted, who said that? Whoever dares to slander Xianxia, I will destroy them. Qin Zhou read the newspaper and teased, not bad. You're very capable. Hua Jin said impatiently, well, anyway, it's better for Xianxia to walk the red carpet with me than to hold onto a middle-aged uncle like you. The most important thing is that Xianxia and I are still very young, but you are already old. Xianxia and you don't match. Qin Zhou's hand that was holding the newspaper suddenly stiffened and blue veins popped out. The word middle-aged uncle made Qin Zhou's heart ache. He narrowed his eyes dangerously and glared at Hua Jin. Middle-aged uncle? That's right. You're almost 30 years old. Aren't you old? Qin Zhou wished he could strangle him to death. Shut up. All right. Men are like this. The older they get, the more sensitive they are. Qin Zhou gritted his teeth and glared at him. He wished he could throw Hua Jin to the ground and trample him to death. How dare he call him old? Xianxia suddenly smiled and said, Hua Jin, thank you. But I think I'd better walk the red carpet with that old man. Why? Hua Jin looked at her. Qin Zhou added, you don't understand our Xianxia at all. Compared to little fresh meat, she still prefers mature, steady, and handsome uncles. Hua Jin poked his fingers, feeling wronged. He really wanted to walk the red carpet with Xianxia. Chapter 1967. When Mu Yazhe returned to the headquarters of Dishing, Minyu hurried over to him and handed him his phone. "Boss, you left in such a hurry that you forgot to bring your phone. Sister-in-law called you many times just now. Do you want to call her back?" During the meeting, Mu Yazhe had left his phone in Minyu's care. After that, he left in such a hurry that he did not bring his phone with him. Yun Xianxia called him many times, but he did not dare to answer. Mu Yazhe called her back, but her phone was turned off. It seemed that she had already boarded the plane. "Are there any more flights to Sea City today?" "The next flight is at night," Minyu reminded him. "If we rush over now, we won't be able to attend the film festival." Mu Yazhe frowned. He had originally planned to fly straight to Sea City after returning from the hospital. "Book the flight." "Boss, the flight is at 7 o'clock tonight. Are you sure you want to fly to Sea City?" Mu Yazhe said coldly, "I told you to book it. Don't talk nonsense." Minyu hurriedly agreed. It seemed that his boss was in a bad mood. When he was in a bad mood, he was very impatient. It seemed that he had to be more tolerant. On the plane, Hua Jin chatted with Yun Xianxia. However, no matter how enthusiastic he was, Yun Xianxia did not seem to be in a good mood. He could sense that she seemed to be in a bad mood. Hence, he smiled and said, "Xianxia, can I give you a present?" He was trying to please her, trying to make her laugh. If you liked someone, you would like her smile. At least, you would not want her to be in a bad mood. He would be sad when he saw that. Hence, he reached out his hand and showed it to her. "Look at my hand. Is there anything wrong with it?" "No." "Xianxia, don't be so perfunctory. Check it." Hua Jin forced his hand to let her check it. Yun Xianxia pursed her lips, picked up his hand, and checked it carefully. "There's nothing wrong with it. What's wrong?" Hua Jin smiled mysteriously. Then he slowly looked up and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Suddenly he snapped his fingers. When he retracted his hand, there was a red rose between his fingers. Yun Xianxia was stunned. She touched her hair subconsciously as if there was nothing special about it. She did not know how he had made the rose appear out of thin air. Seeing that she was also surprised, Hua Jin smiled. "Is it fun? It's magic." She had never seen a magic trick up close before. Even though this magic trick looked very simple, it still made her smile. There was no girl did not like flowers. "Do you like it?" Hua Jin's eyebrows. "Yes." "Here, this is yours." As he spoke, he placed the rose in her hand. Yun Xianxia took the flower and gently touched the petals. They were fresh and tender. It looked like a fresh flower and was not fake. "You know magic?" "A little trick. It was specially used to coax girls." At that time, when he was in the bar, he often came into contact with such things. Hence, he learned a little from them. Although his skills were clumsy compared to professional magicians, it was a handy trick to coax girls. Chapter 1968. When Hua Jin saw that she was finally smiling, his mood immediately brightened. In fact, he actually adored Yun Xianxia. But it was only adoration. Perhaps it was because, in the entertainment industry, to be able to meet such a pure woman was like a treasure. Yun Xianxia gave him a very warm feeling. When he was with her, even if she did not say a word, he still felt like he was being healed. Hence, he really enjoyed his time with her. However, he had never thought of taking such a beautiful woman for himself, because he felt that he was not worthy. In his heart, she was so beautiful and dazzling, while he was very lowly and dirty. From the beginning, he was struggling at death's door to where he was today. He had climbed up by hook or by crook. Looking back, those dirty scenes were something that even he could not bear to look at. Hence, he had arrogantly isolated himself from anyone who tried to get close to him. However, it was to protect himself from any harm. But he had never thought that one day he would have someone he wanted to protect wholeheartedly. Liking someone was really something that could not be grasped. It was often irreplaceable in a single thought. Hua Jin gazed at her side profile gently. For a moment, he was actually a little mesmerized. Suddenly, he said slowly, "Xianxia, you're very beautiful when you smile. You're even more beautiful than roses. When Xianxia heard this, her eyes curved like two crescent moons. Beside them, Xianxia could not help but feel goosebumps all over his body from Hua Jin's sweet words. He could not tell. This Hua Jin was really something. He was so good at coaxing girls that even he had to concede defeat. But thinking about it, it was to be expected. In his early years, Hua Jin was a famous boy in the bar. Hence, this kind of trick was naturally easy for him. When it came to pleasing girls, Hua Jin was extremely good at it. Any difficult woman would be won over in 1 or 2 moves in front of him. Xianxia suddenly thought of something and deliberately said, "But I don't like roses. They're too bright." Hua Jin asked, "Then what kind of flowers do you like? Can you conjure whatever flowers I like for me?" Hua Jin was silent. Magic was also dependent on props. It didn't mean that people who knew magic were like people who knew magic and could conjure whatever they wanted. Unless it was an experienced magician, he could basically conjure anything that he could think of. But he could not do that. Xianxia did not know what he was thinking. She thought that his magic was very good, so she said, "Turn this rose into a Chinese rose?" For a moment, Hua Jin was awkward. Xianxia couldn't help but laugh. Sure, don't make things difficult for him. I think he's already very good if he could make this flower disappear. Hua Jin retorted matter-of-factly, "What's so difficult about turning flowers into flowers?" As he said this, he took the rose from Xianxia's hand. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared into thin air from his hand. Xianxia, who was standing at the side, did not give up. "Then where's my Chinese rose?" Hua Jin looked at her innocently. Sure, where did he go to conjure a Chinese rose?" "All right, I won't make things difficult for you. I know you can't do that." As Xianxia said this, she spread out her hands and said, "Then conjure another rose for me." Hua Jin was speechless. Could he say that the rose was already damaged? Chapter 1969. It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon when the plane landed in Sea City. As it was winter, the weather was very cold at this time. When they walked out of the airport, they could clearly feel the cold. Coincidentally, Hua Jin and Xianxia were staying at the same hotel. They put on their makeup and changed into their gowns in the hotel. Styling was always a big project. After an hour of styling, Xianxia stood in front of the mirror and looked at herself. She was beautiful but not too glamorous. Everything was just right. When she arrived at the venue in the Bentley, the red carpet was full of people competing with each other for beauty. The atmosphere was at its climax. The wind outside was bitterly cold, but the female stars still braved the harsh weather in order to shine the brightest at the film festival. They wore dresses that exposed their shoulders or breasts, and kept posing coquettishly to get as much screen time as possible. The media reporters were already there. They were holding their cameras, and the camera lights were flashing non-stop. It was a lively scene. On the 100-meter red carpet, there were still many loyal fans who braved the cold weather and held their idols' nameplates to cheer for the celebrities. Of course, most of them were fans hired by the celebrities to calm the crowd. The scene was very lively. However, Xianxia could not lift her spirits no matter how hard she tried. The film festival that she had been looking forward to for a long time seemed to have lost its significance without Mu Yaja. In fact, the nervousness he had felt earlier had long disappeared. Xianxia, on the other hand, was very nervous. It was not his first time walking the red carpet. In the past, when he was managing artists, he often walked the red carpet with them. Xianxia had walked the red carpet with him many times. When the two of them walked side by side, they usually attracted a lot of attention. However, it was different this time. Sure, let's get out of the car. Xianxia got out of the car first and then reached out to help her. Xianxia lifted the hem of her dress and got out of the car elegantly. Then she held his hand. Although she was not in a good mood, from the moment she got out of the car, she had to put on a smile and elegant posture in front of the camera. She wanted to show her best side to the camera. She took a deep breath and quickly put on a beautiful smile. She was very charming. Xianxia and Xianxia appeared at the end of the red carpet, quickly attracting attention. As for Xianxia, he was a legendary figure in the entertainment industry. Although he was just a manager, he was more famous than many celebrities. He was the one who single-handedly made Gu Xingzi famous. It could be said that half of Gu Xingzi's 10 years of glory were created by him. He was a legendary figure. He kept a low profile behind the scenes, but he had created countless legends for Gu Xingzi. Another reason was that although he was a manager, he was handsome and dashing. Even many of the popular young actors in the entertainment industry could not be compared to him. It was no surprise that Yun Shirshir and Qin Zhou appeared together. As everyone knew, Yun Shirshir was the only artist under Qin Zhou's management. It was expected that he would attend the film festival with his own artist. Speaking of which, Qin Zhou felt that it was a pity. If the person standing next to Yun Shirshir at this moment was Wuxia, no one would dare to claim that they were the best at the film festival. As the male partner, Wuxia's presence and fame would crush anyone else at the film festival. But to everyone's surprise, he was absent. Chapter 1970. He could feel Yun Shirshir's disappointment. Even though she was smiling, the disappointment in her eyes was hard to hide. She smiled and waved at the enthusiastic fans and media reporters from time to time. She also answered the questions in an orderly manner during the interview. She did not leave out anything. After answering the questions, Qin Zhou held her hand and walked into the main hall. Yun Shirshir appeared to be very low-key tonight. The other female celebrities could not wait to show off in front of the camera. Even if they were chased away by the host, they still shamelessly refused to leave the red carpet. However, as soon as she signed her name on the signature board, she hurriedly answered a few questions from the media and hurriedly walked into the venue. Everyone was puzzled. At this time, she should be fighting for the camera and the limelight. Why did she want everyone to not pay attention to her? Strange. After Yun Shirshir and Qin Zhou entered the hall, they sat down. Qin Zhou had his own seat, but he was worried about Yun Shirshir, so he sat in Wuxia's seat. There were many popular actresses sitting in the same row as her. They were all famous actresses in the industry. They were all seated first. When they walked over, they were surprised to see Wuxia's name on the name tag beside Yun Shirshir's seat. Wuxia? Isn't that the young master of Mu Group? Will he be attending the film festival tonight? I don't think so. He is famous for being low-key. Even though he is the big boss of Huanyu, he rarely appears in public. In the past, there were reporters who secretly took photos of him, but they were mercilessly banned by him. Why would he attend such an event? But the name on the name tag can't be wrong. It is right beside Yun Shirshir. Don't tell me, he came with Yun Shirshir? Everyone was whispering and curious. If they could sit in the same row as a big shot like Wuxia, it would be encouraging. Being able to come into close contact with this legendary business king was something that many people didn't even dare to dream of. However, when Yun Shirshir and Qin Zhou sat down, everyone was disappointed. It seemed that the organizers had really made a big mistake. The name tag was printed wrong. Thinking about it, it was inevitable. Why would someone like Wuxia attend such a small film festival? Although the Golden Eagle Film Festival was the most influential film festival in the country, it was especially grand every year. However, Wuxia had never made an exception. Not long after Yun Shirshir sat down, Han Yin also entered the venue. As the last guest, she wore Louis Vuitton's new winter gown. Coupled with her extremely sexy style and rich and exquisite makeup, she quickly became the highlight of the entire venue. Yun Shirshir also glanced at her. It was just a glance, but she was also stunned. In all fairness, she was really beautiful. Apart from her beauty, she also had the temperament of a queen. Different from Yun Shirshir's gentle temperament, Han Yuan had been in the entertainment industry for many years. Her status was firm, and she had won many awards and nominations at international film festivals. With her excellent acting skills, she was also a magnet for box office sales. With so many honors, she had cultivated the demeanor of a queen and radiated radiance. It could be said that the most famous A-list actress in the entertainment industry was none other than Han Yuan. Chapter 1971. After she sat down, she tilted her head and glanced at Yun Shirshir. Then, she sneered and looked straight ahead, as if she didn't care about her at all. She's so pretty, like a proud peacock. Yun Shirshir praised her sincerely. Qin Zhou sneered. Pretty? Don't be fooled by her appearance. A basin of makeup remover, an old woman from the countryside. If you put on that kind of makeup, how can she compare to you? Yun Shishir was at a loss for words. Han Yuyen's ears were very sharp, so she heard what Qin Zhou said. Or maybe, Qin Zhou didn't deliberately avoid her. Maybe he said it for her to hear. When Han Yuyen heard it, she was furious. This Qin Zhou was so sharp-tongued. How could she have any face left? But Qin Zhou's status was too high. No matter how famous she was, she didn't dare to be his enemy. Han Yuyen clenched her fists so tightly that her sharp nails almost dug into her palms. She barely managed to maintain her composure and not let her anger explode. She smiled elegantly as if she didn't hear it. She looked straight ahead like a proud queen. After a long warm-up, the ceremony officially started at 8 o'clock in the evening. This time, the MCs were Yang Mi and Li Jiuxian. According to Qin Zhou, the original MCs of the film festival were Gu Xingze and Han Yuyen. However, after Gu Xingze was banned, the MC list was changed. Huan Yu had been promoting Yang Mi and Li Jiuxian recently. The two of them starred in a TV series together, and it was at a time when the ratings were hot. Most of the ceremonies of the film festival were a combination of handsome men and beautiful women. Of course, there were a few occasions when there were two male actors. However, although the MCs this time were good-looking, they didn't seem to be important enough. This time, the lineup of the film festival was very strong. Even Han Yuyen was there. Yang Mi's fame was still okay, but Li Jiuxian's fame seemed to have faded a little. After the two of them appeared, the audience erupted into cheers. Yang Mi smiled. It's my honor to appear on this stage as the MC of the film festival today. Facing so many seniors below the stage, I'm actually quite nervous. This is my first time hosting the Golden Eagle Film Festival. As a host, I'm still a newbie and I'm still lacking a lot. Although my hosting skills may not be at a high level, allow me to express my respect and seriousness for the Golden Eagle Film Festival. Yang Jian covered his chest and bowed. Another round of applause came from the audience. Then, Li Jiuxian also gave a congratulatory speech for the film festival. With just a few words, the atmosphere at the scene was lifted. The opening of a film festival was usually very boring. First, the VIPs would be invited to give an important speech. Then, after a round of performances, the awards would be announced. The first round of awards was for the Best Director of the Year and the Best Movie of the Year. First, it was Best Director. The screen first showed the list of nominees and the video clips of the representative works. Unsurprisingly, Lin Fengtian was nominated. The shortlist was generated through a long process of online voting. It was fair and just. There were a total of 10 people on the shortlist. Finally, after a competition, the final prize was awarded. Lin Fengtian's votes had been maintained at a very high level. The box office sales of The Green Apple and its strong reputation made him a strong candidate for the Best Director award. Yun Shishir finally felt a little nervous. Chapter 1972. Before this, she had paid special attention to the list of nominees. The competition was very strong. If Lin Fengtian wanted to win the award, he still needed to have some ability. Of course, ability was needed, but so was background. Yun Shishir hoped that Lin Fengtian would win the award. It was not out of selfishness, but in her eyes, Lin Fengtian had the ability. Although Lin Fengtian did not need a trophy to prove himself, Yun Shishir felt that in the future, there seemed to be no one on the list of directors who could compare to Lin Fengtian's influence and professionalism. The guest presenter for the Best Director award was the most famous veteran actor in the film industry, Chen Haimin. The veteran actor was over 50 years old and was no longer young. Last year, he had suffered from cancer. After 6 months of fighting against it, he finally defeated the disease. After returning to the film industry, he took on a few films and received good reviews. Although he was old, when he stood on the stage in a well-ironed Chinese tunic suit with his signature smile, he still looked energetic. As soon as he spoke, the audience burst into thunderous applause. I have been away from the stage for 3 years. Now that I am standing at this award ceremony, it is as if I have returned home. Dear relatives sitting below the stage, Please allow me the honor to present this sacred and solemn award. The applause rose again. In the film industry, the director is the leader of film and television works. It is like the highest commander in the army. The victory or defeat of the team depends on his leadership ability. After 100 years of settling down, there have been many outstanding directors in the domestic film industry. However, I believe that a director's excellence is not solely determined by the box office. Quality and cultivation, as well as a respectful attitude toward the film industry, are also important factors to consider. It is my honor to receive the award today. The director of this award is also one of the best directors in my heart. I am fortunate to have worked with him for 1 or 2 films. The most unforgettable thing is his extremely professional attitude. Everyone should have guessed who the person I am talking about is. Chen Haimin smiled as he looked at the cue cards and swept his gaze across the audience. The audience was in an uproar. Through Chen Haimin's revelation, they could roughly guess who it was. Lin Fengtian, who was sitting in the first row, suddenly smiled. Yun Shishir held Qin Zhou's hand nervously. I think Director Lin has a chance. Qin Zhou couldn't help but tease. It's not like you're the one who won the award. Why are you so excited? Director Lin's trophy is much more important than mine. How can I not be excited? Just as she was feeling nervous, Chen Haimin's deep voice came from the stage. The winner of this year's Best Director Award is Lin Fengtian. His representative work, The Green Apple. Amidst the thunderous applause, Lin Fengtian stood up from his seat and slowly walked to the front of the stage under everyone's gaze. Chen Haimin hugged him and gave him the trophy. Then he gave him the microphone. It was his home court now. Lin Fengtian stood in front of the microphone and gently raised the trophy in his hand with a smile. I'm truly honored. I am able to obtain this trophy under the witness of all my friends. The trophy is heavy and represents the audience's recognition and love for me. I feel very honored. Chapter 1973. I've been in this industry for more than 10 years. From the beginning as a cameraman, to the release of female films everywhere, to the current, The Green Apple, that finally broke the Chinese box office record. I was afraid that I wasn't good enough. I was afraid that I wouldn't be recognized by the audience. But thank you to everyone who fought with me. This year I did it. To me, The Green Apple isn't just a youth film. It's a step in my career as a director. This is a milestone. Also, I have to thank the big family in the production team for letting me feel the joy and happiness of growing up. This trophy doesn't just belong to me, it also belongs to all of you. Thank you. Yun Shishir smiled and applauded. Lin Fengtian deserved the Best Director Award. Li Jiuxian smiled and said, Director Lin, this trophy carries a lot of weight, but it's also well-deserved. All my glory also belongs to the unknown behind-the-scenes crew. They are all heroes. Thank you. On the stage, Lin Fengtian was humble and polite. It was hard to imagine that this man was the devil director who had scolded all the main actors on the set. After Lin Fengtian left the stage, the awards were announced one after another. The Green Apple was nominated for many awards. Other than the Best Director Award, there were also Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actor, Best Film of the Year, Most Popular Celebrity, of course. Being nominated didn't mean that one would win the award. Gu Xianxia, who was expected to win the Best Actor Award, actually missed out on the Best Actor Award. In the end, the trophy actually fell into his hands. Gu Xianxia had always been popular. Popularity, acting skills, quality. No matter which one it was impeccable. But why could it be because he was banned? Yun Shishir pursed her lips in disappointment. Qin Zhou glanced at her and quickly understood why she was disappointed. He immediately said, Don't be sad. Xianxia didn't win the award because he's not capable enough. Don't be fooled by the low level of the film market in the second half of the year. There are many cases of bad actors making up the numbers. But there are still many good works in the first half of the year, like Mekong River Tragedy, Flying Sword of Snow Mountain, City of Pain. There are many outstanding works. There are many people. Xianxia's acting isn't worse than theirs. Yun Shishir was obviously unconvinced. Qin Zhou explained, But youth films have always been at a disadvantage in the competition for such awards. It couldn't be compared to those films that had a profound meaning, so it was expected that they wouldn't win the Best Actor award. Calm down a little. Yun Shirshir nodded slowly. At the side, Han Yuyen suddenly sneered. Do you think you'll definitely win the award just because you've been nominated? It's just acting in a youth film. Can you act out a sense of superiority? A youth film like The Green Apple may be able to fool students, but it's difficult to. It's an elegant and refined place. Yun Shirshir, I don't think you should have any expectations. You won't get any awards anyway. At most, I'll give you the Best Newcomer award for fun. Yun Shirshir turned around expressionlessly. She glanced at her and smiled gracefully. It seems that I have a bad memory. For someone like Movie Queen Han, who came from a prestigious background, she probably wouldn't care about such inferior works like youth films. However, if I remember correctly, your Virgo is Lin. Chapter 1974. Yun Shirshir's words left Han Yuyen speechless and speechless. She could only glare at her angrily. What a sharp-tongued B***T. How dare she bicker with her? Who does she think she is? Yun Shirshir glanced at Han Yuyen's sinister but fake smile and laughed mercilessly. You said I acted in a teen film to show off my sense of superiority. Interesting. But what about you, Best Actress Han? You've gone overseas for gold plating, and you're already a 36. Ninth grade? Impressive. You. Han Yuyen was so agitated that her face turned red. No matter how thick the foundation was, it was still difficult to hide the redness on her face from her extreme anger. She had indeed debuted because of Bamboo Dragonfly, and had received many good resources because of this film. However, she had always looked down on teen films. Therefore, after she became famous, she took on many artistic films. Although they were good but not very popular, they had accumulated sufficient reputation. Of course, there were some controversial films, such as Butterfly. In the film, she played a prostitute who underwent special training to become a female spy in the intelligence agency. Her life was full of ups and downs. Because the plot was sensitive, it was not released in the country. Many people on the internet scolded her for being a traitor. However, this film had successfully opened up international resources for her, and with her outstanding performance in this film, she had entered the Hollywood market. Although there was a lot of criticism in the country, Han Yuyen later did charity work and promoted charity work, washing away her unglamorous image. Yun Shirshir especially despised people like her. In her heart, no matter what kind of film it was, as long as it won the approval and love of the audience and was not a shoddy production, it had its own value. The Green Apple was an excellent film in her heart, and she would not allow anyone to tarnish it. Moreover, Han Yin could be said to have been made famous by Lin Fengtian. Now, she had turned around and insulted her mentor's work. It was really infuriating. Qin Zhou was shocked that Yun Shirshir dared to retort. At the same time, he was annoyed by Han Yuyen's deliberate provocation. Han Yuyen, you seem to be very talkative. If you can't keep your mouth shut, I don't mind sewing it up for you. Qin Zhou's words were much more forceful. Hearing this, Han Yuyen snorted coldly and turned her head away, not daring to say anything else. However, the resentment in his heart towards Yun Shirshir was becoming more and more extreme. Before Yun Shirshir, Lin Fengtian had also worked with many female celebrities. Lin Fengtian was different from other directors. In order to guarantee the box office, most of the other directors would offer a high price of tens of millions to use A-list young actresses. Shadow media didn't need much publicity to have enough influence. But Lin Fengtian was not. The amount of money he offered depended on the performance of the actor. He would rather spend tens of millions on the post-production of the film as well as the filming budget. When it came to casting, he still preferred to use newcomers most of the time. Firstly, newcomers were very easy to sculpt. Although they were not famous, they were just a blank piece of paper, so he could sculpt them however he wanted. Secondly, newcomers knew how to cherish opportunities that were hard to come by. They were humble and polite, and many newcomers were even more outstanding than those popular starlets. For example, Yun Shirshir's acting skills were much better than many other starlets. Chapter 1975. However, before Xianxia, there had never been another Phoenix girl who could compare with Han Yuyan in terms of popularity. Until Xianxia appeared. She came with a vengeance and was exposed overnight. Her popularity was even greater than Han Yuyan's. Of course, Han Yuyan was unhappy. No one wanted to be outshone by anyone else. With Xianxia, many people secretly laughed and said that Xianxia would be the second Han Yuyan in the future. Han Yuyan was old and no longer young. Her popularity was probably over. Han Yuyan was almost driven mad by these comments. Xianxia, why are you paying attention to her? She's almost a has-been and she's jealous of you. Xianxia laughed. Jealous? How can I not be jealous? You can still act as a middle school student. At her age, she can only act as a student's mother. Xianxia's mouth was indeed the sharpest. Han Yuyan trembled with anger when she heard this. When she heard Xianxia's words, she instinctively touched her face. Although she paid a lot of attention to her skin care, she was still young. In this industry, one had to rely on one's youth to survive. Youth was the only way to rise to the top. In other words, her acting skills were not as good as Xianxia's. In the future, she could only rely on her past. If she could not find a good director and a good script, she would not have any prospects. In addition, her overworked filming career had caused her endocrine system to be disrupted. Her skin was very bad. Indeed, in a movie like The Green Apple, she could only act as Xianxia's mother. This was too much. How could she make fun of her like this? If Han Yuyan was not waiting for the award ceremony and she could not leave as the guest presenter, she would have left her seat in a fit of anger. Xianxia could not stop laughing. You're exaggerating. She may look good now, but once she removes her makeup, she looks like an old witch. Xianxia stuck out her tongue. Han Yuyan's face was tense. She glared at Xianxia but could not do anything because of Xianxia's presence. She could only suppress her anger and clench her teeth. The awards ceremony continued. There were male and female Best Newcomer awards, but they were both on stage to receive their awards. As the guest presenter for the Best Newcomer award, Han Yuyan gracefully stepped onto the stage. Xianxia's heart skipped a beat when she saw that the award was given by her. Why is she presenting the award? It was set by the organizers. Looks like you can't run away from the Best Newcomer award. Why do you say that? Xianxia was a little confused. Could it be that this award was decided internally? For a live broadcast like a film festival, the ceremony process must be very boring, so a certain gimmick is needed to promote it. Since Han Yuyan is the guest presenter, as the Phoenix Maiden, the two of you are the same. When he appeared on the stage, it was bound to attract a lot of controversy and comparisons. This is what the organizers are happy to see. Xianxia's analysis was very organized and logical. Xianxia understood it very well. The Best Newcomer Award was the only award where the entire process of voting was conducted online. It was absolutely open, fair, and just. Chapter 1976. During the final voting process, the final list of winners would be kept a secret until it was announced on the spot during the award ceremony. The votes of the winners would also be announced. All of this was done by the notary office. Therefore, the Best Newcomer Award could be said to be the only award that was not overstated. There were a total of 10 nominees for the Best Newcomer Award. Xianxia carefully studied the list of nominees. Until the voting channel closed, she was still in first place. The effect of The Green Apple was unprecedented. On the huge screen, clips of the nominated actors' representative works were shown. Among them, when it came to Xianxia's The Green Apple, the editing of the film made many people excited and applauded thunderously. Xianxia was shocked by this scene. Are these people the Internet Water Army? How is that possible? Aren't they too supportive? Xianxia was still in disbelief. Xianxia chuckled. Little girl, don't you know how many uncles in the industry fell in love with your role as Xianxia? Otherwise, do you think that praises for your excellence are just words of comfort? You have indeed performed well. Xianxia smiled awkwardly. Han Yuyan stood on the stage and glanced elegantly at the cue card in her hand. She smiled at the microphone and announced, The final winners of the 19th Golden Eagle Awards for Best Newcomer Award are. Everyone held their breaths and was silent. Xianxia Huajin. Congratulations. Sure enough, it was just as Qin Zhou had predicted. She really won the Best Newcomer Award. Thunderous applause rang from below the stage. Xianxia had won the Newcomer Award, which was widely expected of her. After the announcement of the award, the camera quickly switched to Xianxia. Xianxia smiled at the crowd. Even though she had won the Newcomer Award, her face was calm and collected. Naturally, she did not show much surprise and appeared extremely calm. Everyone was shocked. It was not easy for a newcomer to face the award with such a calm attitude. Qin Zhou clapped and looked at her gently. Go on stage to receive the award. Watch your expression. Don't be too nervous. But Xianxia stood up slowly. As the winner of the Best Newcomer Award, Hua Jin walked in front of her like a gentleman. He kissed the back of her hand gently and held her hand as they walked onto the stage together. Han Yuyan smiled as she watched her walk onto the stage. Although she looked natural and unrestrained on the surface, what about her heart? However, he was already gnashing his teeth in hatred. Xianxia walked up to the stage and stood beside Hua Jin. Her bearing was elegant and proper, and she exuded a quiet and elegant aura. This elegant temperament was not something that was painstakingly trained. There was a type of person who was born noble and elegant, and it was incomparable. Han Yuyan stood at the side. Even though she had put in a lot of effort in dressing up and makeup on her face, she still managed to steal a lot of the limelight. Even her aura was suppressed by Xianxia's. Her starlight was bleak. On the surface, Han Yuyan maintained her composure, but her heart was in turmoil. Xianxia was touched when she received the heavy trophy from Han Yuyan. This was the first trophy she had won in her acting career. It was very memorable. Even though she already had a lot of mental preparation for this trophy, when she stood on the stage and held the trophy in her hands, the pride that welled up spontaneously rose. Chapter 1977. Congratulations, Xianxia. You really deserve the Best Newcomer Award. Thank you. Han Yuyan lowered her head and looked at her. She was wearing a pair of 10-centimeter high heels today, so she looked very domineering. She lowered her head and leaned closer to Han Yuyan's ear. In the eyes of others, this might be a senior congratulating and blessing a junior. However, once Han Yuyan stepped away from the microphone, she smiled and squeezed out a few aggressive words. Xianxia, don't be too proud. If you fly too high, you might fall and shatter into pieces. Xianxia looked up and met her sharp gaze for a short moment. Han Yuyan was just a multi-award nominated Best Actress. She had good acting skills and a smile on her face, but she said such vicious words to her. Xianxia was not to be outdone. She stared at Han Yuyan's face and retorted with a smile, Miss Han, don't be too jealous of me. Do you know what's the first thing I'll do when I fly to a certain height? What? Han Yuyan raised her eyebrows, puzzled. Xianxia smiled and the curve of her lips became gentler. I'll step on you. You, the concierge reminded her softly, Miss Han, it's time to give the award to Mr. Hua. Han Yuyan came back to her senses and gave the other award to Hua Jin. However, she looked at Xianxia meaningfully. It was Xianxia's turn to give her speech. Xianxia raised the award and held the microphone. I never thought that I'd be able to win this award. As a newcomer, I've been trembling with fear all along. I'm afraid that I'm not good enough, However, after the movie was released, it gave me too many surprises. The support of the director, the care of the seniors, and the recognition of the fans. One thing I'm sure of is that without all of you, I wouldn't be standing on this stage right now. When she went down the stage, Qin Zhou asked, What did Han Yuyan say to you just now? Congratulations from the seniors. Huh? Qin Zhou didn't believe her. He didn't even need to think about it. Han Yuyan wouldn't say anything nice. There's no need to be so calculative with her. Xianxia was very open-minded and didn't take it to heart. Xianxia had been mentally prepared, but now that she was holding the heavy award in her hand, her heartbeat quickened. She was happy. At this moment, she suddenly felt that all her efforts might be worth it. She was lucky. The Best Newcomer Award was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for an actor, regardless of everything. It was an honor that no amount of awards could exchange for. Of course, she was honored. If she didn't get it, it would be a regret. She was very open-minded when it came to awards. If she didn't win, she would smile and encourage her. However, without the witness of that person, this moment of glory seemed to have lost its profound meaning. At the end of the award ceremony, most of the awards had been announced. Many celebrities had already left the venue. Alas, she insisted on sitting until the end. After all, this was a respectful attitude toward the movie. Qin Zhou became more and more certain. A person who knew how to respect others, at least in terms of character and accomplishment, was worthy of recognition. The Green Apple was a big success. Apart from the Best Screenplay, Best Director, and Most Popular Film of the Year, it also won the Best Newcomer and Best Editing awards. Chapter 1978. Although The Green Apple was excellent, there were many other works that deserved recognition. There was also a small incident in the middle. Actually, the Best Actress of the film festival had already been decided internally. With the Mu Group's strong investment, he had made an irreversible condition back then. The Best Actress award for this year's Golden Eagle Awards must go to Xianxia and no one else. Hence, Xianxia could have won the Best Actress of the film festival. Unfortunately, there was a conflict among the judges. Wuxia was not present at the event. Hence, when the organizers saw that the Mu Group's highest authority was not present, they had selfish motives. In the end, the voting process was skewed, and another investor used underhanded means to take away the original Xianxia's Best Actress award was given to Lin Ji. Xianxia only found out about this from Qin Zhou after she returned to the hotel. Qin Zhou only found out about it after the awards ceremony ended. He was furious. No wonder there seemed to be a conflict at the judges' table when they were giving out this award. A few of the judges were arguing about something with ashen faces. They were playing tricks and manipulating the situation behind the scenes. They had actually stolen Xianxia's Best Actress award. If not for this interlude, the title of Best Actress would eventually fall to Xianxia. This would be a historic moment for the Golden Eagle Awards. If she could win both the Best Newcomer Award and Best Actress Award at the same time, it would be a great honor for Xianxia. She would be the youngest actress to win both the Best Newcomer Award and Best Actress Award at the Golden Eagle Film Festival. For a young newcomer, this was an enviable honor. However, due to various reasons, it could only be a pity. Qin Zhou did not inform Xianxia on the way. He was afraid that she would feel disappointed and depressed. However, Xianxia did not feel that disappointed. Lin Ji's team had manipulated the situation behind the scenes, and so had Wuxia. Compared to his absence from the film festival, everything else seemed less important. She said to Qin Zhou, "Don't worry, I'm not that weak. I'm already very happy to win the Best Newcomer Award." Qin Zhou exclaimed, "Your psychological endurance is really strong. If it were any other female artist, they would probably be crying under their blankets right now. One shouldn't be too greedy. One must know how to be content." Qin Zhou nodded and reminded her, "It's getting late. Have a good rest. We'll return to the capital tomorrow morning." Xianxia returned to the empty room and gently placed the trophy on the table. She stared at it for a while, then got up and went to the shower to wash up. After washing up, she went to bed early. Her mood was a little messy, so she lay on the bed, tossing and turning, unable to fall asleep. When he closed his eyes, the whole world was noisy. In the middle of the night, just as she was about to fall asleep, her phone screen suddenly lit up. It was a message. Xianxia unlocked the phone and saw that it was from Qin Zhou. "I'll wait for you on the rooftop." It was a simple sentence with 6 words, concise and clear. Tiantai? There was a rooftop in this hotel, but it was on the 28th floor. Why did Qin Zhou ask her to go to the rooftop? It was the middle of the night. Wasn't he going to sleep? Xianxia called back, but she could not get through. That was strange. Chapter 1979. She made a few calls, but none of them went through. Was it because the hotel's signal was not good? That was strange. Qin Zhou's phone was always connected, and the signal was excellent. Sometimes he could receive her phone even when there was no signal. Yun Shirshir dialed more than 10 times, but there was still no response. She frowned, stood up and changed her clothes. The night was cold, so she put on a jacket, opened the door, and walked out. She seemed to remember which room Qinzhou was in. 1502. She was on the 14th floor, and Qinzhou was on the 15th floor. He mentioned the room number to her and said that she could knock on the door if there was anything. But she did not pay attention at that time, so she did not remember Qinzhou's room number. For a moment, she was annoyed and could only search based on her vague memory. When the elevator reached the 15th floor, she walked to the door of 1502 and gently pressed the doorbell. Ding dong. He called out several times, but no one answered. Yun Shirshir frowned in confusion. Was it not 1502? Just as she was about to leave, she heard the sound of the door unlocking behind her. Yun Shirshir turned around in surprise, only to see Hua Jin standing at the door with a tired expression. He asked in an unfriendly tone, "Who is it?" Before he could finish his sentence, Hua Jin saw Yun Shirshir standing at the door. Surprise flashed across his eyes, and then the coldness in his eyes faded, and a smile appeared on his face. "Shirshir? Are you looking for me?" Hua Jin was wearing a bathrobe. His hair was a little wet, and it fell messily above his eyebrows. His charming peach blossom eyes were slightly bright because of the surprise in them. Yun Shirshir's gaze could not help but fall on him. Hua Jin's bathrobe made him look tall and slender, but his chest was slightly exposed, revealing his defined muscles. He looked extremely sexy. Usually, when she saw him the most, he was wearing slim-fit ancient clothes. Hence, he looked like a slender and delicate handsome man in ancient times, who could not even hold his waist. However, she did not expect that he was also a man who looked thin in clothes but was muscular when he took them off. He was very stylish. Hua Jin sensed her gaze and followed her gaze. He looked down at his chest and smiled faintly. He shyly straightened his clothes and the corners of his lips curled into a playful smile. "Does it look good?" Yun Shirshir blushed. She turned around and cleared her throat. "I didn't see anything." The smile in Hua Jin's eyes deepened, but he didn't expose her excuse. Yun Shirshir also sensed his kind protection and instantly felt embarrassed. She turned around abruptly and wanted to leave. Hua Jin stopped smiling and asked nervously, "Where are you going?" "I'm going back to my room." "Aren't you looking for me?" Hua Jin stopped her. "What's the matter?" Yun Shirshir turned around and immediately explained, "No. I got the wrong room. I thought Qinzhou stayed in this room." Hua Jin was stunned and his eyes were filled with loneliness. He quickly understood that she had knocked on the door because she thought Qinzhou stayed in this room and remembered the wrong room number. He was disappointed. He had thought that she was looking for him, but he did not expect that it was just his wishful thinking. "So, you're looking for Qinzhou and not me?" "Yes." Chapter 1980. Yun Shirshir didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Why would I look for you in the middle of the night?" "You can look for me even if you don't have anything to do." Hua Jin said matter-of-factly, "There are a lot of things you can do." Yun Shirshir raised her eyebrows and stared at him suspiciously. Hua Jin felt that there was a lot of unfathomable meaning in that pair of eyes. Afraid that she would think too much, he immediately retorted like a gentleman. For example, "We can chat or play cards. Let's play Fight the Landlord together." Yun Shirshir shook her head and laughed. "I'm not good at cards, and I'm only average at Fight the Landlord. I'm destined to lose money. If you're not good enough, I can go easy on you." Hua Jin smiled, but he seemed very generous. Yun Shirshir teased, "You're so rich." "Mahjong is fine too." "I don't know how to play mahjong." Hua Jin was stunned. "Then what do you know?" Yun Shirshir couldn't be bothered with him. She had wasted a lot of time coming and going. She was still anxious to find Qinzhou, so she said, "I'm not telling you. If you're bored and can't sleep, don't drag me along. After I find Qinzhou, I'll go back to my room to rest. I have a flight tomorrow morning." "Shirshir, wait a minute." Hua Jin saw that she was about to turn and leave, so he quickly stopped her. "What?" Yun Shirshir looked at him warily, not knowing what he wanted to do. You don't know Qinzhou's room number, right?
Yeah, but
I can help you ask. 5 minutes later, Yun Shishir sat uneasily in Hua Jin's room and looked around. The luxurious suite Hua Jin was in was twice as big as her suite. Most importantly, it had a sky garden. Standing on the balcony and looking out at the city, the scenery was beautiful and beautiful. Especially looking from afar, it was as if she was in the vast starry sky. Hua Jin sat in front of the bedside table with one hand holding the phone. Seeing her look at the garden and balcony, he couldn't help but laugh. Do you like it? Yes, I do. Yun Shishir praised from the bottom of her heart. It's very beautiful. Such a suite is really too luxurious. Garden suite. You can enjoy the night view and it's very quiet. Hua Jin dialed the number at the front desk and said with a smile, if you like, you can stay here tonight. Yun Shishir threw a pillow at her. Shut up. Are you trying to play rogue with me? I wouldn't dare, I wouldn't dare. Ouch, it hurts. Hua Jin covered his nose and begged for mercy. While the two of them were fooling around, the phone at the front desk was connected. Hua Jin immediately asked, Hello, I would like to ask for the room number of a guest. Yun Shishir, who was standing at the side, came to a sudden realization. She was still wondering why Hua Jin called the front desk. It turned out that he could check the room number. Stupid. Why didn't she think of that? His brain was really slow. However, Hua Jin suddenly frowned and his expression became strange. What do you mean? The system has been hacked?
Yeah.
Just now, the server at the front desk was hacked and the system went black. The technical department is already doing emergency maintenance. It happened so suddenly and I'm really sorry. We have already registered your request. However, due to the system crash, I'm afraid we won't be able to find the information you want for the time being. The front desk kept apologizing, obviously feeling guilty. Hua Jin put down the phone. Yun Shishir immediately asked, How was it? Chapter 1981. Yun Shishir frowned. She felt that something was amiss. She only regretted that she didn't remember Qinzhou's room number when he told her about it. The screen of her phone flashed again. She looked down and saw that she had received a text message. Shishir, I have something to talk to you about. I'll be waiting for you on the rooftop. Yun Shishir suddenly stood up. Hua Jin also stood up nervously. Where are you going? I'm going to look for Qinzhou. He said he'll be waiting for me on the rooftop. Asking a girl to go to the rooftop in the middle of the night. No matter how he thought about it, it felt a little strange. I'll go with you. Hua Jin was obviously worried, so he suggested. Yun Shishir shook her head and said, No need. Maybe he's in a bad mood and drinking alone on the rooftop. He wants me to go over and talk to him for a while. Hua Jin nodded hesitantly. Then he looked at her worriedly. Be careful then. It's cold on the rooftop. Don't catch a cold. Thank you. Hua Jin's sincere concern warmed Yun Shishir's heart. She then left the room and walked up the staircase. There was no direct elevator to the rooftop. She needed to reach the top floor and then walk up the stairs. The highest floor of the hotel was the 27th floor. The radio station was at the top, 28th floor. It was very high. After reaching the 27th floor, she turned a corner and walked through a long corridor. Then she saw the stairs that led to the rooftop. She put her phone in her pocket and slowly picked up the stairs to walk up. Amidst the palpitating silence, her footsteps were crisp and powerful. When they collided with the marble table, they knocked on her heart. However, she felt oppressed. The corridor was too quiet. Perhaps because this floor was rarely visited by people, the lights in the corridor flickered because they had not been repaired for many years. Just like in horror movies, she felt that there was a pair of eyes filled with hatred staring at her from the dark corner behind her. It stared at her back as if it wanted to pierce through her body. Yun Shishir's heart was beating like a drum. The staircase leading to the rooftop was so long. In the dim light, she didn't walk fast. However, in the deathly silence, the uneasiness and fear made her flustered. However, gradually she began to have a very strong sixth sense. It didn't seem to be an illusion. She really felt that there was a pair of eyes silently staring at her from behind, like a ferocious beast aiming at its prey. This feeling was very strong. Wishful thinking. How could this be possible? Even so, she was still frightened by her own imagination and broke out in a cold sweat. However, she did not dare to turn around to see what was going on. It was as if the moment she turned around, that person would pounce on her. Xianxia could not help but feel a little regretful. He didn't know why she was trying to be brave. Just now, Hua Jin had said that he wanted to accompany her. Why did she reject him? She was obviously very scared. She didn't dare to walk slowly anymore. In a spurt of energy, she ran crazily to the rooftop. She pushed open the slightly open door. However, what welcomed her was the biting cold wind of the rooftop and the seemingly endless starry sky. The rooftop of the hotel was very big. At the same time, the hotel's water tank was also installed on the rooftop. Seeing the huge water tank, Xianxia was in a daze. She suddenly remembered a piece of news from before. Chapter 1982. She couldn't help but shudder at the thought. When people were in extreme fear, it was easy for their imagination to run wild. Reality had proven that one's imagination was far scarier than reality. Xianxia calmed down and looked around. However, she didn't see anyone on the huge rooftop. Qin Zhou wasn't around. He wasn't around. Xianxia glanced at her cell phone suspiciously. She swiped the screen to unlock it and took another look at Qin Zhou's message. She thought that she had seen wrongly. But she wasn't wrong. He did ask her to meet on the rooftop. Xianxia was a little angry. She didn't know what Qin Zhou was up to. Didn't he say that he had something to talk to her about? She had agreed to meet him on the rooftop. Where was he? Could it be a prank? Xianxia was a little suspicious. She thought of Qin Zhou's usual black-bellied appearance. He seemed to like to tease people and took pleasure in it. He usually spoke frivolously. It seemed that he was deliberately making fun of her. Xianxia was even angrier at the thought of this. She was even angrier at herself. She actually believed Qin Zhou's prank. She even thought that this frivolous fellow had something important to talk to her about. It seemed that she had been overthinking. Xianxia was angry. She turned around and wanted to leave. However, she was mesmerized by the night view in front of her. As a developed city, Sea City was famous for its seaside scenery. This hotel wasn't far from the seaside. Although it was a short drive, standing on the 28th floor of the hotel, one could overlook the city's night view. At the same time, one could also see the endless sea in the distance. The sky and the water merged into one. It was impossible to distinguish the coast, and the end of the sea could not be seen. Xianxia originally thought that the best time to appreciate the sea view was probably when the sun was shining brightly. However, she didn't expect the sea view at night to be so beautiful and mesmerizing. The rows of landscape lights by the seaside reflected each other. From afar it looked like starlight. At first glance, it looked like a vast starry sky. The stars and moon in the sky were reflected on the surface of the sea. The sparkling waves added a touch of poetry to the scene. Xianxia casually picked up her phone and pondered. She wanted to capture this beautiful scene. He turned on the camera, but what popped out was a selfie. Many camera apps were targeted at people who liked to take selfies. Therefore, the first thing that popped up was the front-facing camera. Her face was suddenly reflected in the selfie. She was startled and immediately wanted to switch the camera. However, just as her fingertips touched the switch function, she suddenly realized that there was someone standing behind her. While she was still in shock, the camera had already switched to the rear camera. However, in the shot just now, there was clearly someone standing behind her. A woman with disheveled hair and wearing a hospital gown. Xianxia broke out in a cold sweat. Thinking that she was hallucinating, she slowly turned around, only to be horrified to find a woman with disheveled hair standing behind her at some point. Ah! This scene was so frightening that her hand trembled, and the phone fell to the ground with a pah sound. She was so frightened that she took a few steps back. She looked at the woman standing in front of her in shock. Her eyes were wide open. She was obviously frightened. Who are you? Chapter 1983. She even forgot to run. There was only one lamp on the rooftop and the light was extremely dim. Hence, she couldn't see the woman's face clearly at that moment. She could only see that she was wearing a hospital gown that had been washed until it was white. She seemed to be in a daze. As soon as she finished speaking, she actually let out a few extremely sinister laughs. Ah, that woman only cared about herself as she laughed foolishly. Her gaze landed on Yun Shirshir and she started to close in on her. Yun Shirshir's expression stiffened. Her laughter was too sinister, as if she was a malicious spirit that had walked out from purgatory. She bared her fangs and brandished her claws as if she was here to claim her life. It was extremely sinister. Yun Shirshir held her breath for a moment. She was so shocked that she instinctively took a few steps back. For a moment, she actually forgot to run. Yun Shirshir, you've caused me so much trouble. That woman laughed maniacally as she raised her head. Her voice was mournful and shrill as it reverberated on the empty rooftop. It made one's heart shudder and feel waves of numbness. You've caused me so much trouble. Return my child to me. Return my child to me. She screamed shrilly. Her sharp voice seemed to pierce through people's eardrums. The light fell on her face and that sinister and distorted face was reflected in her eyes. It was a face that was unfamiliar yet familiar. Mu Wanru. Yun Shirshir turned pale with fright and her face instantly turned pale. She didn't realize that the person in front of her was actually her. How could it be her? She didn't know how Mu Wanru had become like this. Yun Shirshir frowned. She was so nervous that she was about to suffocate. She clenched her fists tightly and stared at her every move unguardedly. She saw that she was wearing a hospital gown. From the words printed on the hospital gown, it was actually a mental hospital. She had a deep memory of this mental hospital. It was one of the most famous mental hospitals in the capital, and there were many severely mentally ill patients there. In her impression, Mu Wanru was noble, elegant, graceful, and beautiful. However, right now, her beautiful black hair was as messy as withered grass, with gray and white streaks intersecting with each other. It was unknown what she had experienced during this period of time. Her black hair was actually mixed with a lot of white hair. Looking from afar, she looked like she had aged several decades overnight. Her face was also extremely aged. The wrinkles on her forehead were very deep, and her face revealed a sickly and pale haggardness. Because she was so thin, her eyes and cheeks were sunken in, and her cheekbones were protruding. Especially her lips, they were withered and cracked, like the earth that had been dry for a long time. She had lost weight. Originally, she was still a little plump, but now she was as thin as bones, like a walking skeleton. This description was not exaggerated at all. Looking at her pair of wrists, they were all skin and bones with blue veins popping out. It was unknown what kind of torture she had suffered. Her body was covered in wounds, and there were many scratches on her exposed neck. Although they had healed, the unsightly scars looked as if her flesh had been gouged out. It was extremely disgusting. Don't come over. Yun Shirshir stared at her warily and was extremely guarded. Return my child to me, ha! Return my child to me, return my precious flesh and blood to me. Chapter 1984. Yun Shirshir, I've finally found you. Do you still remember me? In the blink of an eye, she resumed her foolish look as she stretched out her sinister hands and pounced towards her. You caused my son's death, I want you to pay with your life. She pounced towards Yun Shirshir like a maniac. Yun Shirshir's reaction wasn't slow as she saw her pouncing over with bared fangs and brandished claws. She nimbly dodged and ran towards the direction of the door. Mu Wanru pounced on empty air, but she quickly turned around and sprinted a few steps. Reaching out her hand, she grabbed onto Yun Shirshir's hair. Following the tearing of her scalp, a strand of Yun Shirshir's hair was viciously pulled out. She only felt her hair being pulled hard and she lost her balance as she fell onto the ground. Mu Wanru was like a ferocious beast as she pinned her down and her pair of hands grabbed onto her throat, strangling her like a maniac. Under extreme madness, a person's potential was limitless. Even a person who didn't even have the strength to truss a chicken would possess limitless strength. Mu Wanru's strength was terrifying as she pinned her down and couldn't move at all. Following that was a world-destroying darkness. Mu Wanru's hand was strangling her throat, and a strong and terrifying pressure caused her to be unable to breathe freely. Yun Shirshir's face instantly turned red from suffocation as though it was dripping blood. "Let go!" Yun Shirshir gritted her teeth and paused after every word as her hands grabbed onto Mu Wanru's hair and tore it together with her. The scariest thing about a person was nothing more than a maniac. Perhaps it was because she had gone crazy, all of her senses were not clear. Even after Yun Shirshir tore off a few strands of her hair, Mu Wanru still seemed to be unable to feel any pain. She continued to laugh crazily in a daze. Even though her head was already dripping with blood and a piece of her scalp had been torn off, she still did not flinch. Yun Shirshir was on the verge of suffocating. Her throat was tightly gripped, and even the basic right to breathe was taken away. For a moment, her brain was in a state of chaos and buzzing. As a result, other than Mu Wanru's hysterical roars, she could no longer perceive any other sounds. Veins popped out on Yun Shirshir's forehead. She felt that her eyes were swollen and painful due to the pressure. In a place of despair, as if she had gone crazy, her hands groped around on the ground. Suddenly, she touched a piece of gravel. Grabbing it with one hand, she raised her head with difficulty and aimed it at her temple, viciously smashing it. Mu Wanru cried out in pain and loosened her grip. Yun Shirshir desperately escaped from the sea of suffering under her and flipped to one side. Hugging her throat, she started coughing violently. Cough, cough. She was like a terminally ill patient who was struggling at death's door. Kneeling on the ground, she wanted to stand up. However, all the blood in her body rushed to the top of her head. The moment she stood up, her body collapsed onto the ground in pain. Cough, cough, cough. Yun Shirshir coughed violently. From the corner of her eye, she suddenly saw Mu Wanru standing up from the ground. Even though her head was bleeding, her malevolent eyes were fixed on her and she pounced over. The two of them rolled to one side and started fighting. "Lunatic! You lunatic! Get lost!" Chapter 1985. Mu Wanru, however, relied on her sheer strength to land slap after slap on her face. What was scarier was that she seemed to have lost all sense of pain. She did not even feel the slightest bit of pain and did not even flinch. Slap, slap. Mu Wanru cursed at the top of her lungs as she made up her mind to put her to death. While Yun Shirshir was terrified, she also felt extremely hopeless and helpless. Her head was buzzing. When a person went crazy, it was scarier than a ghost. She did not feel pain and did not know how to retreat. She was single-minded, as if she was determined to perish together with her. "I'm going to kill you. Yun Shirshir, I'm going to kill you and let you be buried with my flesh and blood." The mournful words echoed in her ears over and over again, piercing her eardrums to the point of rumbling. She finally understood that this Mu Wanru was probably triggered by something and went crazy. But she really did not understand. Mu Wanru kept saying that she wanted her to be buried with her flesh and blood, but she did not remember when Mu Wanru had a child. Wasn't she infertile? However, Mu Wanru was indeed crazy. She was truly crazy. After she became an adult, she was diagnosed and the conclusion was that she would never be able to have a child in this lifetime. It was not easy for her to adjust her mentality and accept this fact, but one day, when she found out that she was pregnant with his child, she suddenly realized that all of this was a trap that Mu Yaja had set for her. She was completely unaware that she had fallen deeply into his trap and had become a pawn in his hands. From the beginning to the end, she was the one being used. In vain, she had schemed and worked hard just to truly integrate into the Mu family and become Mu Yaja's legitimate wife. She had always thought that her infertility was her problem. Hence, she always felt guilty towards Mu Yaja. She was unable to give birth to a child for him and she was full of guilt. Therefore, even if the child was born to another woman, although she never treated them as her own, she never made things difficult for them and raised them with all her heart. But in the end, she found out that she was pregnant. The child, on the other hand, was killed by Mu Yichen's gun in an accident. Mu Yichen was the child of Yun Shirshir and Mu Yaja. She had raised him up, but who would have thought that he would become the murderer of her unborn child? How could she accept such a cruel and bloody fact? So, in the end, she had fallen into a complete scam. It was a pity that she was so naive, but in the end, she became a complete joke. Her child was gone. She could have given birth. But why didn't he accept her? Since he had chosen her to be his fiancée, why couldn't he accept her from his heart? Even if they didn't really love each other, even if it was just an undeserved reputation, she still wanted to be his wife and help him raise his child. Was this thought too much? She felt miserable. She thought of that poor child in her dreams. It was supposed to be a healthy child, but in the end, it couldn't be saved. Did he really have to be so cruel? In the end, wasn't it all because of this woman? Xianxia. It was all her fault. If it wasn't for her, if she hadn't interfered, she could have found happiness. Perhaps, through hard work, she could have gained Mu Yaja's recognition. Chapter 1986. Mu Wanru's eyes lit up with flames, just like the hellfire in purgatory. Xianxia. Everything was because of this wretched woman. She was the main culprit. Kill her, she must definitely kill her and let her accompany her own flesh and blood in death. If it wasn't for her, she would definitely be able to obtain happiness and Mu Yaja's heart. But her interference had ruined everything. It was this demonic thought that had driven her crazy. Mu Wanru grabbed onto Xianxia's hair and viciously smashed the back of her head onto the ground. But in that instance, Xianxia only felt a buzz in her head, and it was so painful that her eyes were filled with shock. The worlds seemed to have overlapped with each other, and every breath was extremely clear in her ears. But it was also this instance that completely ignited her latent will to live. She couldn't die. She knew very well that if she didn't resist and break free from this crazy woman, she would definitely be forced to her death. She couldn't die. With this determination, her entire body seemed to have been injected with adrenaline, and in that instance, it was as if countless amounts of energy had been condensed. Xianxia suddenly grabbed onto Mu Wanru's hair, and without knowing where she got the strength from, she kicked her away. Mu Wanru suddenly fell backwards onto the ground and was unprepared for Xianxia's kick to one side. This time, Xianxia's strength was unparalleled, and her latent will to live had given her a huge amount of strength. Mu Wanru only felt a wave of pain in her stomach as she violently vomited out a trace of blood. That kick had actually caused her internal organs to rupture. Not knowing if it was stomach bleeding or something else, Mu Wanru crawled on the ground and vomited out another mouthful of blood. Xianxia climbed up from the ground and regained her energy as she suddenly pounced over and kicked Mu Wanru to the ground again. She viciously kicked her a few times, and seeing her struggling to get up, she suddenly sat on top of her and viciously punched her face. Bang! Mu Wanru was hit so hard that she was dizzy. Xianxia followed her example and grabbed her hair, slamming her to the ground. What right do you have to resent me? Mu Wanru, if it wasn't for you. Xianxia's eyes were bloodshot. She gritted her teeth and her voice was filled with hatred, anger, and grievance. The bitterness that had been suppressed for so many years had finally been released. All of a sudden, it erupted like a flood. If it wasn't for you, I don't know how to wander around. If it wasn't for you and I wouldn't have had to suffer so much. You're clearly the one who snatched everything from me, yet you don't reflect on yourself. Instead, you bully me time and time again. Are you blaming me? Is this my fault? Bang! In the crazy wrestling, Mu Wanru's head hit the ground countless times, and blood flowed from her head. I worked so hard to survive. Am I the third party? Am I the one who interfered and caused you to be like this? No, you brought this upon yourself. You can't live. Xianxia was furious as she fought back crazily. Mu Wanru didn't have the strength to fight back. She allowed Xianxia to violently grab her hair and slam her to the ground time and time again. She had a splitting headache and even felt her head spinning. She was so numb that she had lost all sense of pain. Even if she fought back, Xianxia quickly blocked her attacks.